Hi, I'm Tom.
I'm Matty.
And I'm Lewis.
This is the Wigan Way, Wigan's favourite rugby league podcast.
He'll put you in his trap, 'cause he's a union man. He's got it all figured out. He won't care what you think, 'cause he's a northern man. He's allowed to speak his
So you're joining us, guys, after round 20. Wigan have just played Leigh at home. Unfortunately, there's only two of us this week. Lewis has gone on holiday. He won't be here this week or next week. So you just get myself and Matthew. Matthew, how's your week been?
Good, thanks. It's been very good. Another nice week off.
Always better when we win, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's
Much-
nice to be here talking a winning podcast.
It's much better when you've won.
Enjoy playing it more.
When you have to watch the highlights of every game and you go,
Oh,
do I really have to watch this loss again? The amount of times I watched the Hull KR game, the loss, it killed me.
Well, I enjoyed watching this one back a few times.
Well, it was a really good game, actually. So Wigan came out winners 44-18. Half-time was 16-6.
Yeah.
Was very close first half, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was six apiece until the last few minutes of the first half. So it was. I think the scoreline did flatter us slightly at half time, but we executed towards the end. We'll talk about it in a bit. But yeah, winning 16-6, I was very pleased.
See, I'd have to agree, though. I think 16-6 probably flattered us. 12-6, I thought would have been fair, but we talked about it with Wigan for a long time, their ability to play 80 minutes consistently and play every half out until the end. And that's why, because you just have that little bit of more fitness, that little bit more ability to go bang bang at the end of halves.
Yeah.
And be there right at the very end of games. Which sort of was a bit of a killer, really, for Leigh. If you think it sort of killed any momentum that they had. It was balanced until then, and then it just seemed to...
Yeah, they would have been pretty pleased to go in at half-time level.
Or even at 10-6, 12-6, I think they'd have been happy.
Yeah, to concede on the hooter, as we'll talk about in a bit, we'll talk about the tries individually in a bit, but to concede on the hooter would have been pretty painful for them.
Now, the first thing we wanted to talk about was, obviously, the first Wigan Leigh derby at the DEW for a couple of seasons. And a really big attendance, 15,377.
Yeah.
That is a massive turnout for...
Good turnout, good away following. Saturday lunchtime, I think that helped.
Yeah, I do. We saw before that, and we're going to talk about it later on, but the Channel 4 figures, 280,000 was it, watching on Channel 4?
Yeah.
And I know their numbers don't sound massive when you compare them to
what they were last year.
But they were competing against day three of the Ashes, final test. And everyone's got Ashes fever, and still to get over 250,000 people to watch on Channel 4 when they could be watching the Ashes.
Imagine if the Ashes were on Channel 4, how many people would have watched that?
Yeah, definitely.
Never mind, that's another conversation for a completely different podcast that we don't host.
But I think over 15,000 is a massive attendance no matter what game.
Oh yeah, massive, yeah.
What was the attendance for the semi-final?
Not that.
So it was as high as 15,000?
I don't think so.
I don't think it was either. So that's a massive effort from both sets of fans.
It's probably our second biggest behind Good Friday.
Yeah.
From thinking about it. It's the biggest one this weekend by far. Biggest attendance this week by far.
Now, the referee for this game was Jack Smith. What did you think? He seemed to have a very decent game to me.
Yeah, I think Jack Smith had a good game. I was impressed. He didn't have a lot to do, but he seems to get all the big calls right. He went to the screen a lot, but that's better than the alternative of getting things wrong because you're too proud to go to the screen, which we've seen some video refs do, and I've been critical of in the past. So I don't mind it. If he's got the screen, it's there for him to use, so I don't mind if he goes to the screen a lot, especially because all the ones were correct by the screen anyway, so the video ref got everything right this week, so you might as well go to him. But yeah, I thought Jack Smith had a decent game without too many big moments for him to decide.
It was one of them, really, that there wasn't any massive calls to make, but he just seemed to be quiet.
Yeah, he didn't seem to give like loads to one team in a row like we've seen this year, where he just was one team was getting peppered and then the fans get on his back. That didn't seem to happen at all. Yeah, I think he probably refed it quite well, but he did let the game go, and it was flowing as a result, which is a good thing.
I think that's one of the positives that I wanted to bring up, that the game flowed really, really well, and it seemed like there was long spells of contests where no one was really the dominant side. They were competing with each other.
Yeah.
For 10, 15 minutes.
Well, there weren't many penalties. And there weren't that many errors or six agains, really. So I think the game just was like an arm wrestle.
Yeah, I like games like that.
Oh yeah, me too. And usually big games are like that.
But should we go into the tries?
Okay.
Because Lee opened the scoring really in the 12th minute. Sorry.
As they did against us previously.
Exactly. In fact, before we start, should we mention the fact that all the commentators were backing Lee pre-game?
Well, I don't mind that too much. They were both from Leeds. And,
yeah, it was just a strange one, because I always think after a semi-final win and you're prepping for Wembley in 2 weeks' time, you got your eyes on one of the things. So I was very surprised that they were all
there's that
backing Lee.
Anyone but Wigan for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Wigan.
Yeah, I suppose so.
To win.
But Tom Amon opened the try scoring, converted by Reynolds. It was a really weird one, this, because they mentioned it on the commentary team that obviously Smithies was called offside at the play of the ball. And they said, is there an element of you just take the necessary evil there of tackling him and giving the penalty?
Hindsight, though. Hindsight.
Because he breaks through the Bevan French tackle, but if French tackles him one-on-one,
he's going to score. Probably.
That's what I mean. Most of the time he scores one-on-one.
That close to the line. You can't tackle him one-on-one.
But if we manage to get people in and Smithies doesn't get involved and we don't give a penalty, no one even mentions it. So
no, I think what he was planning to do was move towards the post and pass it.
Yeah.
So if he did that, then it wouldn't matter that Smithies was offside and didn't get involved. I think it was just that. I think it was clever from the attacker that he heard that the guy was offside.
He heard the refs called.
He saw him back off and then he went full speed. So I think it was clever. I guess just be onside at the play of the ball.
Yeah, it's tough though in them situations.
The biggest problem was just being offside at the play of the ball. But yeah, it's tough. Clever play to spot that from Amon, who I actually thought had a decent game.
I was very impressed. I was impressed with quite a lot of players. There wasn't anyone that I thought they'd been poor today.
There were a few people that we'll talk about in a bit. But luckily, we hit back straight away.
Yeah, 6 minutes later, Bevan French scores.
And what a try it was. Up for the try of the week for the UK. I'll be surprised if it doesn't win. If it doesn't win, it's because people don't vote for Wigan players.
It was a brilliant move from start to finish. They start with that overlap. I think Smithies was first receiver, wasn't he? Who plays it out to Smith.
Yeah.
And Smith has French on the Field on the outside on the overlap, as he does time and time and time again. And you can see the panic in the defence.
Yeah, the defenders are panicking about Field.
They already start to slide, and he slips Faz through on a short ball. And I think the way that Farrell runs that short ball makes Field so much more dangerous, because he can break through and he can score tries from distance. It keeps them honest in the middle. But then the offload back to Field, as Farrell gets through, he must be 15 yards behind him. And he must hit, because I've watched it and I can't figure out how he can see Field has changed direction to come for the offload.
I think it was a planned move. I honestly think this was a planned move, Tom. I think put Farrell, and we've seen it before. I remember seeing this exact try at Wakefield last year in the Cup, except Field finished it instead of passing it, which he probably could have done this time. But I think this was a planned move. I think it was get Farrell through the gap, and either he passes it back inside for French, or if somebody wraps him up, he can offload it to Field, who's come charging through. I think that was the plan. It created a huge gap between I want to say centre and second rower,
I think it was, yeah.
or something like that anyway. Might have been centre and half back, where there was such a big gap because one had to come in to tackle Farrell, and the others were carrying on with the slide, so Field could just slip straight through. It was a lovely planned move. He gets to the full back and he does what any good player should do, which is just put Bevan French over through the middle. You know.
Well, that was it really. They mentioned it at the end of the game that Wigan had got 40 odd points and Field hadn't really been threatening, but he did what he does in most games: back up, put his man through.
Yeah.
1-on-1 with the full back, and you've got Bevan French trying to catch up on the inside.
No
one's catching him.
Yeah.
No one's catching him. He could round him. He could try and round him, but there's no need.
Exactly.
Put French through, and French scores under the sticks, converted by Harry Smith.
Yeah.
And then it took another 20 minutes or so, really, until Wigan's second try.
I was batting at this point, and somebody who will remain nameless shouted from the balcony that Wigan had scored.
Yeah.
So which was very helpful for me, actually.
Yeah, it takes your mind off things.
It takes my mind completely off the game I was playing, yeah. But very helpful that I knew Wigan were winning.
But this one wasn't really a well-executed move, should we say.
No, this was a terribly executed
The ball was thrown wide to Miski, who was playing two in, almost at centre.
Yeah.
Weirdly. He tries to put a kick through.
Well, it was
And
matched up defensively, wasn't it?
yeah.
It was actually defended quite well.
Mm.
It was matched up defensively, so he had no choice but to put the kick in. And then he's not Harry Smith he's not the best kicker, but actually this helped because his complete miss kick,
Bounces into the league.
bounces into King's hands and he just powers over, which actually took some finishing. King.
He did quite well to just get his head up and look at where the space was for King to score, but then Harry Smith misses this kick.
Yeah. So we're thinking, right, 10-6, going to half time, 10-6.
Yeah, probably.
Happy.
We've done well though, because we weren't in it and it was tight for a long time, so
Yeah.
to get a try right before the end's a killer. And a bit of that's putting your foot down on the throat there, getting one before half time. But then 3 minutes later, in the 40th minute, Bevan French scores his second, kicked by Smith to take us to 16-6.
Yeah.
The ball was shifted again to the right. Miski puts in a far better kick. He actually makes contact where he
This
means
is actually
to.
a proper kick this time. Into French, who just lets it hit his knee.
Yeah, really
Because
clever
there's
not to panic.
Yeah, because there was no defenders. So there was no defenders, which means he didn't have to collect it first time and fall over the line. He could have just let it hit his knee, wait, patient, pick it up, score.
He showed what everyone imagines they would be like in that situation, but none of us would
no,
be.
I wouldn't do that. I would have
He
snatched
takes the absolute time of day to let the ball hit him, bounce, adjust, and then just almost. He doesn't snatch at it.
No.
You see it so many times that they go hard at the ball that's bouncing, and it actually hits your hand and you knock on.
Yeah.
He just lands on it really simple.
Yeah, he did really well with that. And, you're paying the big money to score tries, so that's why you do it.
And that took us into half time at 16-6. Into the second half, a debutant, Tyler Dupree, scores in the 48th minute to take us to 22-6, again converted by Harry Smith. And there wasn't really
Anything on?
anything on here.
No, I'm chuffed for Dupree because he gets his moment on his debut, and he took his try well. But realistically, this was just
This was a settler.
This was a normal
This
play.
this was just getting position
Yeah.
for a play to the
and he
left.
just runs hard at the line, and it opened up. I don't know what was happening with the Leigh.
He runs it in hard.
They
but
would have
then-
been upset with this one, Leigh.
Yeah, especially after half time, first 10 minutes after half time. And the gap just opens.
You can't let this in.
No, not a try that you can
So
concede.
the two French tries, you've been opened up. This one, he just ran straight through the middle.
That'll be the killer for Adrian Lamb, looking back at it. Dream debut for Dupree, what did you think of him?
Well, I liked him. Obviously, we didn't have extended period of him. I think he did. We managed him quite well. He obviously went off because of the stinger he took to his hip off the Asiata tackle. He's fine, it seems. Yeah, he was speaking after the game, saying really looking forward to the next game and trying to win again. So yeah, I'm really pleased we've got him. We've got him earlier than I thought we would. I think he adds something completely different to our pack. Yeah, very, very pleased to have got him over the line and very pleased with this debut. I think he did everything that he could and nothing more, nothing less. So yeah, really solid debut from him and a flashy moment to get the try, cap it off.
Apart from the try, there was nothing really flashy. He just did his job, defended well. Happy debut. I still think there's more to come for him.
Yeah, definitely, but it's his debut. You'd expect him to run it hard and to run good lines, but perhaps in defence struggle because he's not used to
The defensive patterns.
But yeah, he did fine with that. So yeah, I'm very pleased with him.
And then we go into the 52nd minute. 4 minutes later, it was Abasmiski's first try, again converted from Harry Smith.
Yeah, off the touchline. This one. This was try of the game for me. I know the first French try is nominated for the try of the week, but this was the try of the game. This was complete left to right. I mean, Harry Smith, what a ball! What a ball that was. Or am I talking about the wrong mission?
You're talking about the wrong try, yeah, sorry.
Well,
His first one was his interception.
Oh, well, he scored so many, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so his first one's his interception, where he takes the ball 10 metres out.
Oh, well, this doesn't try of the week then.
We'll come to that one in a second. So many tries.
I know Miski keeps scoring, like, it's not my fault I'm getting mixed up with his tries, he should just not score.
But his first one was 10 metres out, and he takes the interception.
Oh, yeah.
Goes length of the field, 10 metres out from his own line. He was chased back by Hardacre. It didn't look like he was going to make it.
No, it didn't.
We all admit that Miski may not be the fastest winger in Super League.
No.
And that's when the questions become about whether his work rate coming out from backfield and his finishing ability outbalances that. But he was still able to outrace Hardacre and Charnley.
Yeah, I mean, if you're quick enough to run the whole length of the field away from Hardacre and Charnley, then you're quick enough to play on the wing in Super League, because those are two pretty quick individuals, especially at tracking back. I think the thing about Miski's pace is he's not going to get the ball and burn somebody outside like French would, but that's not the kind of winger he is. So, yeah, if you can get these interceptions, if you can run the length of the field, just about finish it before Hardacre catches you, yeah, fine.
And I had a conversation with someone, I can't remember who it was, but you can actually see in the background that Field makes about 25 yards on him because he's playing at full back at this point.
Yeah.
And when he reacts, he almost catches him.
This one was sent to the video ref because Jack Smith was about halfway.
Yeah.
I mean, he did better than we would, but
he wasn't in the picture for it. But what I mean with Field is most of the times, if he ever gets in open space, you would expect someone like Bevan French or Jai Fields to be on the inside if he's not got the legs. In reality, we know what Field is like for backing up.
Yeah, he's reliable for that.
So then we go on to what I probably thought was maybe in contention for try of the week. You certainly do. Can't stop thinking about it. 5 minutes later, Basmiski gets his second. Smith misses this kick and it takes it to 32-6. But it was a left to right play, and what a ball from Harry Smith.
Yeah.
He sort of drifts from left to right and then hits Toby King with just a cut-out ball.
In the NFL, this one would have been called a frozen rope, which means it's flat.
It doesn't dip, it doesn't do anything.
Quick.
So much pace on that ball.
Yep.
It takes out 3 or 4 defenders. It cuts 2 of our men out, but cuts out 3 or 4 defenders. And Toby King, as we've said, does what every centre should do. Draws his man, passes to his winger, and Miski finishes really, really well in the corner.
And he had mucked one of them up already, so it was good to see him get this one right. Yeah, Miski, what a finish. Touch judge said no try. I think Charlie's foot was in touch.
I always think they're difficult, them.
They are tough, them ones.
But it does add to the point of that they've got this one wrong on field. What would we have done if we weren't on Sky? If this game was close and we weren't on Sky...
Oh, well, Channel 4.
Oh, Channel 4, sorry. You weren't having a video ref. My mistake.
It wouldn't have been given.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been given. And if this game was close, you'd be really, really gutted about that. Luckily, because it was there, and this is why we push for every game to have a video ref at some point.
Yeah. We had a chance to correct to correct it.
To correct the mistake, which is all you can ask for. Because refs will make mistakes.
Yeah. Good finish though from Miski.
Brilliant finish by Miski. Then, 4 minutes later, Liam Marshall scores.
This was in our period of every time we touched the ball, we scored.
Yeah. Now, on our notes, we've wrote that it was an outrageous offload. But when I text you about the game, I said the only disappointment was it bounced. If it had hit Marshall's hand, it would have been a better pass than Smith's.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it bounces. But I think that might actually help make the try that Marshall has to come in field for the ball then.
Yeah, Marshall
And
with a
brings
nice
it back
pick
inside.
up. Cuts back inside. Again, very easy to get through the defence. I would have been disappointed if we conceded that try.
Yeah.
Because once Marshall gets it, they still had a chance to stop it, even though it was a good pass.
Then, it was 7 minutes until we got a Leigh try. Tom Briscoe, Reynolds converts. It was a good move left to right. Do you think Marshall needs to bite in like that? I don't. I think sometimes we can overbite. If I'm being hypercritical.
Leigh are good at this though.
Yeah,
Leigh are good at these big shift plays, big block plays where it goes through four or five sets of hands before they put the winger in. We actually defended them really well on this game.
In this game.
And we used our sliding defence very effectively. But this was an occasion where we jammed in not very well, and Briscoe was in for a good finish, which is what he does.
So that takes the game to 38-12 with just over 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Still a try for both teams at this point. It was Wigan next. Abbas Miski getting his third and his hat-trick. First of all, it was one of our talking points for the end, but another hat-trick for Abbas. Can't complain at that outcome when considering at the start of the season he probably wasn't in the starting 17.
No, he's taken his chance. He's really taken his chance very well, hasn't he?
It was another interception. Not from as far out. Smith converted the goal. I thought Leigh at this point, they were trying to play.
They were trying to cheat.
And I didn't get the point behind it. It was 38-12. So you're 26 points behind. Why are you throwing the ball around? Work hard. I know I'm all for working hard, mate.
Looking for a shortcut. And the first Miski one, you can understand because he reads the play, rushes up and intercepts it on the line. This one, he didn't even rush up to intercept it. He was just standing defending and they threw it to him. It was just a forward pass. So this one, I think you'd be much more worried about. I mean, we see French throws an interception in almost every game when we're attacking the line because he throws that big face ball, and if the winger reads it, then they can intercept it, which is the first Miski try. You can deal with that, you can live with that, but this one, I think they'll be really disappointed. They're just chucking the ball about with no real regard for where it goes. It
felt like they were trying to, like you said, cheat the game a little bit, try and get another couple of points and work on goal difference and whatever. And for me, I just thought, you're behind by 26, do the basics right here. You're not going to score 26 points in 9 minutes. Then finally, though, I wasn't really happy conceding this try.
It was direct. Direct play.
Try from Robbie Mulhern, converted by Reynolds, finished the game off at 44-18.
Yeah.
It was just a very, very simple crash ball.
It was.
Don't get me wrong, they did it well all game. But we should defend that better. And I think Matty Pete will be disappointed with that. But that result...
It's difficult though, isn't it, when you're on the hooter and you're 30 points up.
Yeah,
it's more even by that time, 35, 36 points up. It's difficult to defend your line with that intensity that you would, for example, when we were winning by 2 points against Warrington. Like, we just all flying bodies everywhere. This is different. This is, the game's won already. You don't really want to put yourself in any undue danger. Not saying they let them in, but subconsciously it's much harder to defend when you're like this.
But that takes us second.
Yeah.
So, considering the disaster spell where everything was wrong and I was hearing people argue that Matty Pete wasn't the right coach and French shouldn't be playing 6 and Field should be here and our pack's not big enough and this isn't good enough and blah 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 blah.
Custy's a must or whatever it was.
They need to get rid of. We need to bring in 6-7 players. We need X player gone, Y player gone.
We're second.
We're second in the league. And
we should have already been second, really, because let's be honest, that Wakefield game,
yeah,
we didn't hit the kicker, we would have won. So
and we're second in the league. We missed out by the Challenge Cup final by Golden Point. I'm happy with where we're at. I think Catalans have been more consistent than us.
And we'll talk about them. They were excellent this weekend again. But yeah.
But it's not all doom and gloom, and I know that middle section of the league is really, really close. And if we were to look at the league, I think, is it 4 points, split them all? So Wigan are on 26 points, Leigh on 26, Saints on 24 with a game in hand, Hull KR 22 and Warrington 22. So the top six, second to six are split by 4 points. We've got a far superior points difference. And we're second in the league. If you got offered that at the start of every season, you'd snatch your hands off after 20 rounds to be second in the league.
Yeah.
I think everyone would. Now, two players that we highlighted been up for a bit of question, really, and I have been critical.
Well,
and
Mago's come in for some questioning. Patrick Mago is one of them who has come in for some questioning. Almost every game he's ever played for Wigan, besides a few where he hasn't done enough minutes and he hasn't made enough of an impact, and his defence has let him down. Cade Cust is the other one who no one's really been questioning his play because he's not been getting a chance. A few people have been asking for him to get a chance, but most people have been okay with him not getting a chance because the team's been doing all right. So, and how do you squeeze him in? He did get a chance this game off the bench as a backup 9, and he brought something different. He looked like a man fighting for a contract or fighting for a place in this team.
I think they both did. Mago, the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've been far more impressed with.
Yes.
His output going forward has been far better.
You think you saw Miskey and Ellis get contracts and then I'll knuckle down and get my own?
I don't know. I still question his defensive.
I think his defensive downside, unfortunately, defending close to the posts is a worry for me when he's on, especially when he's tired.
But at the time being, I can't criticise what he's doing.
He's been fantastic last few weeks.
And he's never been injured.
Fantastic. No.
Played pretty much every game.
Well, he was... he played 20 games in a row to start last season. And he was the only player to have done that.
Yeah. I think he's played all 20 this year.
Yeah. No, he's not played everyone. He's not played every game.
Has he not?
No.
There was definitely one where they picked Hill.
There was one where...
Mago.
Yeah.
He's been available for every game is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So, the other point, along with Cade Cust, is obviously that he's not been being selected. No Joe Shorrocks this week, because of his ban for the Challenge Cup, who has done spells at 9. With Shorrocks on the bench, do you think there's a potential that we could get Cust and Shorrocks both on the bench at the same time? Because for me, I find that very unlikely.
Let's look at our bench then. So, we had Mago and Dupree. Let's say those are your two props. Might not be them two, but let's say those are your two props. Then he's picked Nsemba, and I think that's purely because Piers Paul is available and it can move into the pack. So you're picking two props and a second rower. That only leaves one space. So either you're going to pick Cust or Nsemba or Shorrocks. Two of them, basically.
Yeah.
Two of them, three. You could pick Shorrocks and Cust, and Shorrocks does the role Nsemba did in this game where he moves into the back row. I probably wouldn't do that. I would suggest Nsemba is probably stronger at that for a time being. Or you could even pick Hill and pick three props. Really, the world's your oyster if you're Pete. I would, personally, give Cust a bit of an extended role as a 14. You see it very often in the NRL, which we're both big fans of. We talk about the NRL a lot. That 14 role, they always talk about it as 14, which sounds silly because everyone on the bench, like the numbers don't really matter, do they? 14, 15, 16, 17 is just on the bench. But they always pick 14 as someone who's a bit of a utility, a bit of a Swiss Army knife, can play 9, can play in the
13.
halves. Sometimes they can play 13
Well, they did, look at the Origin teams. 14 was Nico
for the first
for
game.
the first game.
And
he
for
could play full back, could
for
play in the
Queensland,
halves.
it's Harry Grant.
But Harry Grant's an out and out 9.
Yeah, but
that frees up Ben Hunt
Ben
to play in the halves.
anywhere else. So basically, you say, okay, in that situation, Harry Grant's the 9 and Ben Hunt is the 14.
And he can play.
And he can play in the halves, 13, centre if you really need him to.
Which he did for 10 minutes when they won it the year before.
So I think that's probably the role I would give to Costa. I think he is better at that than Shorrocks. I think he covers different positions that you need to be covered.
It's an interesting way to think about it, but if a half was to go down injured, you could play Costa.
Yeah.
If a winger was to get injured, you could play French there and move Costa in the half.
Yeah.
It gives you options.
There's more positions covered by Cust being on the bench. And I know it's not just a case of
covering injuries,
playing for injuries, things like that, but it does matter. It does
and
matter.
O'Neill is still only 22.
Yeah, and I think Cust improves the pace. O'Neill's distribution is obviously much better, but it improves the pace when Cust comes on against tired defences. Yeah, I think it's not something we see very often, is the 14 being used this way in Super League.
I was about to say, it's been a long time since you've seen teams regularly pick 2 9s. Warrington have started doing it with Clark and Walker, but one of them's been playing it in the 13 position. So Saints did it for a long spell with Cunningham and Roby.
Yeah.
And then
even Roby and Lussick this year.
But Lussick wasn't getting anywhere near the minutes in comparison.
No, it doesn't matter though.
To originally start with.
I don't think that really matters. If Roby gets an hour and Lussick gets 20 minutes, that's still better than Roby playing all 80, I think.
Exactly.
Just because of the players that they are.
So I can see... Sorry.
You can certainly see the benefit of Cust as a 14. And I think you probably... If the club's not already made a decision about these 2 individuals, they need to make it pretty soon.
Yeah.
I don't know when the deadline is. I don't know when they can start speaking to other teams.
I think you can do it the year before your contract.
I imagine
they're already doing it.
No, I know, but I don't know when the deadline is for the team option.
Oh, right, okay, for the year extension.
For the year extension. For Cust and Mago, they both got potentially a year extension. Now, for somebody like Ian Thornley, no disrespect to Ian Thornley, I don't think there's going to be many Super League clubs fighting for his signature for a 1-year contract. But there is that option for Wigan, so they can quietly extend him if they want the backup, which I probably would.
I would probably keep Thornley around the squad.
Ryan Hampshire, same. Probably keep him around as backups. Very valuable members of the squad. And I don't think they're going to be commanding huge salaries because there won't be a huge bidding war for them. Cust and Mago probably are on decent money. We don't want to speculate, but they're probably on decent money because they come from the NRL and they're quota spot members. So I don't know if you would want to keep both of them. As it stands, we're okay for the quarter, are we? Or do we need to lose one?
As it stands, I think we're okay for the quarter.
Well, Kieran's coming in. Who's going?
Oh, no one will be 1 over, won't
So
they?
we're 1 over. So
depending on what happens with ISA.
So depending on what happens with ISA, which is the big thing, a lot of people seem to think that this is ISA done with these 2 back-to-back bad injuries. I don't know, but it would make sense for that to be the end of his career, unfortunately.
You just mentioned Thornley in Hampshire and our thought of this should be around the squad.
I'm adding Shorrocks into that.
And Shorrocks and... Who else was I thinking of?
To be what?
In and around the squad, my brain's gone blank now. My point being is we're looking at the Leigh team that was playing. That team's been very, very similar week in, week out.
I think even Matty Pete mentioned it, didn't he? He said like they've got a great 17, but squad depth is... They're going to struggle for squad depth or something.
Yeah. You look at the fact that Ricky Latelli has got injured for the season and that's required him to go and sign Oliver Gildart, which I don't think they would make that signing if... What's the word?
If they had Ian Thornley to bring in.
If they had any... Well, they've got that in Ed Chamberlain, but they've not got squad depth everywhere, and Chamberlain's been used in the second row, he's been used on the wing, he's been used... that he's the one utility man. Where I look at that, Latelli's got injured and they've had to go and get Gildart to replace him. I don't see Wigan having to do that. We could have carried on without Dupree.
Oh, Harvey Hill would have been next man in. Yeah, and I'm very confident with Harvey Hill being in the team.
I just think this is one that they were getting and they decided to bring it forward with the availability.
Yeah, I think so. And apparently, Wigan were always going to sign him, but Salford approached us and asked if we could take him earlier due to their financial situation. I don't know how true that is, but
Yeah, that's what I'd heard. I'd
that
heard
would
the
make
exact same
sense
thing.
that we're just taking him early, and I think it adds to the squad, doesn't it? So it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, get him in early while we can. We did the same with Mike Cooper last year,
Yeah,
even though that was a bit earlier,
that was earlier in the season, but still the same.
because we'd signed him for this season, hadn't
Yeah, the same premise, wasn't it?
we? So that wraps up.
So I just to say, Custon may go as it stands. We'd probably be against extending the deals just because we've not played enough, or what. I think Cust needs to run in the team and then decide.
It'll be interesting to see next week. We've got Hull KR, who have released their squad. And I don't want to get into the preview of it too much, but while we're talking about Custom Mago, they've released the squad, and it... should we call it thin?
I'd expect Custon Mago to both play.
I would expect them both to play. It'd be interesting to see where they play Cust.
Pete's already mentioned that Burns having a week off, so it will be interesting to see where they play Cust, right?
But in what role they play him, for me.
I'd play him in that 14 role, and I would have him as utility and as a backup 9. Personally, and I would see where we're at in 4 weeks. I know that's cutting it a bit close to the end of the season, but if you want him to do that role,
I'm okay with it.
What's wrong with giving him another year?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at, basically. I think the Miskey one, we give him another year. That was very smart. You don't know what's going to happen in 12 months. The Ellis one, very happy that it's 3 years. So there's my difference. Both of these, if we do extend them,
I suspect them to be 1 year.
It would be
and
1
see
year.
where we're at. A year maybe with another option, I don't know.
I'm not convinced we are going to trigger that extension for them both.
I've not heard any rumours about it either, really. Normally you start to hear things that, it's a done deal and this is happening or that's happening. I've not heard anything.
We heard that for Ellis and Miskey, didn't we? So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm happy with this team. You know, I think we can make some waves. And we're really building strongly for next year. Looking at Dupree coming in and hitting the ground running like this.
Very much so. Well, that wraps up the Wigan game.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back to talk about the rest of Super League. Thank you. So we're back to have a quick look at Super League. A bit of a funny roundup this week, really, with the games, just in terms of the fact that a lot of the interesting games happened later on in the week, because we started off with Huddersfield and Hull, two teams who've been very, very up and down, very inconsistent, and this was probably a game of not the highest quality, I think is fair to say. Huddersfield coming out 19-12 winners. It was 12-12 at half-time. Tries for Huddersfield were Chris McQueen, Tuil Olahir, Jermaine McGilvery, Ollie Russell kicking 3 goals and a field goal. The tries for Hull FC were Brad Fash and Adam Swift, Sutcliffe kicking both his conversion attempts. I've given my opinion there, Matty. I don't think it was a game of the highest quality that we've seen. What do you think?
I guess this, as a pure fan of the sport, I guess this is a good result, because Hull were a couple of points off the playoffs and Huddersfield were 4 points behind them. So I think it just makes it a little bit more interesting. I'm not ruling Huddersfield out yet. I'm certainly not ruling Hull.
Well, there's still 14 points up for grabs for every team. There's 7 rounds left. Huddersfield actually got a game in hand.
I know, yeah.
And that game in hand would put them to 20.
Against, that's St Helens. But you never know. Yeah, I think this scrap for 6th place is going to be an almighty one, I think. And this is a good result in that it makes
keeps
it
it more alive.
Yeah, it keeps it a bit more interesting.
Do you think that takes Huddersfield out of any relegation?
I think their win over Wakefield did that. Because that was back-to-back wins for them, and it was over a direct rival. So I think when Wakefield got the 2 points against us, Huddersfield also won that weekend against Cat in France.
Yeah.
So I guess then them beating Wakefield themselves the week after, I think, put a line through any chance of them being relegated. How many points are they on now, Huddersfield? 16, is it?
16.
So
Puts them 8 points clear.
The other two teams are 8 points clear, so they're not going to make up 5 wins in only 7 games, are they? So, yeah, definitely. Huddersfield are well out of it. They're very much safe, and they're actually going to be looking up rather than down.
Yeah, pushing for that top 8.
Well,
top 6, sorry.
I think so, yeah, I think so. Interestingly, it probably could be a top 8 this year, and you wouldn't lose that much quality just because of how close teams, 2 to 10 are.
Yeah, indeed.
As for Hull, playoffs still up for grabs for them, but obviously they're going to be losing Jake Clifford, which is now confirmed, back to the Cowboys
For next year.
For next year, yeah, and he's been the best player, I've got to say. Clifford's been their best player, so
I think it was an earlier episode. Me and Lewis talked about him, and we said that he hadn't really stepped up to the plate in the first maybe 6 to 7 rounds. From probably round 10 to round 20, as we're talking, he's been very, very impressive.
yeah.
Not perfect, but you would be hoping that they could keep him for him to bounce back and push on next year.
A lot of the good
rebuild.
things. A lot of the good things Hull have done have come through Clifford, but it was always like this. I think Clifford was always looking for a stepping stone, and lots of players do this. I mean, not usually in 12 months, but a lot of players seem to do this. Come over, try and get it as a bit of a stepping stone, revitalise their career, get another gig in the NRL. It doesn't always work. Some halfbacks get stuck here, being passed around all the Yorkshire clubs. But some halfbacks do really well and get signed in the NRL again.
I think Clifford's done enough to get a contract back over there.
Yeah, well done to him.
Going back to North Queensland.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the rumours that Townsend's going to be moving on from there, and
Well, I
that
think
leaving
that
partner in Tommy Dearden.
That would be an improvement, Dearden and Clifford, over what they currently have. And what they currently have is very good.
It's a top 4.
Yeah, Dearden and Townsend. So I think they'll be pleased. They're the Cowboys. They're getting a good player. Clifford's done well. Fair play to him. I can't stand in his way here and say he shouldn't leave. Yeah,
I think Hull knew that when you sign an Aussie halfback, you're taking that risk, aren't you? That if they come over here and stand out, an NRL club who's looking over there that says, yeah, we could really do with one, the first place is going to be, let's have a look over there who's wanting to come back in the first place.
Yeah.
And the Aussie players are always looking for a way back because that's where they're from and that's where they live. And it's the best competition in reality, if we're being brutally honest.
Yeah. Oh,
They're
if
making
we're
more
being
money.
brutally honest, then the NRL is streets ahead of Super League in terms of quality and sponsorship and cash that you can
everything.
earn. Yeah, in every way. The only thing where it's probably similar is actual in stadium spectators. We're actually probably slightly ahead. Say it quietly, but it's very close. TV audience for them
Is massive.
massively high, but it is all terrestrial TV, I think, or most of it is anyway, and every game's on TV. So I mean, this is covering all ground now. We've been talking
Hammering
about
this on.
every game being on TV for how long has this podcast been going? 15 rounds plus Challenge Cup plus international break, so 21 episodes ish, and we've been talking about it a lot. So yeah, the NRL is the premier competition in the world, and if you are Australian especially, you want to play in it.
So let's move on over to
Friday night.
Hull. Still Friday night. The Hull KR against Castleford Tigers. A game really that I think Castleford should have been targeting.
Yeah.
A game that Castleford will have thought they could have won. And at the time, if they'd have won, would have given them a 4-point safety cushion. But they've actually lost.
And quite convincingly as well. 34-16.
34-16.
Yeah.
It was 16-10 at half time, so you're thinking they're in the game.
Yeah.
They've
I think
won-
it's been 16-0, then to 16-10,
Yeah,
and then 34-16. So weird, like, swings with the margins here.
But try scorers for Hull KR were Ethan Ryan, James Batchelor, Elliot Minicella, Kane Lynette, Reece Kennedy, Tom Opacek and Rowan Mills. Kicked 5 goals out of 6. Tries for Cass, Greg Eden, Jack Broadbent, Will Tate, Riley Dean kicked 2 goals.
In his last appearance for
I
Castleford.
was just going to say, he's been recalled by Warrington and then not put in the 21-man squad.
Again, he's been recalled by Warrington. Again. This is a guy who was on loan at Featherstone, doing really well, recalled, not picked. Then he was sent on loan to Cass. I don't know how well he was doing because he didn't really have many weeks at Cass. Recall again, not to play. Castleford today have announced the signing on loan of Blake Austin, which we'll talk about a bit more in a bit. Is this a case of Castleford saying, we're getting Austin on loan, have Riley Dean back? I doubt it, because they're both useful players to have.
Are Cass in a place where they can turn down having a player like Riley Dean?
We spoke about it giving a chance for Broadbent to go back into the centres where he's naturally, and all about how great Riley Dean would be. Austin solves those same problems, but I don't see why you wouldn't have both in your team.
I don't. Especially if you could.
If you can have, why not have Austin and Dean? That seems like a good partnership to me.
And then you don't play Jacob Miller, do you?
No, but I think Riley Dean and Austin are both better than Jacob Miller personally. Or certainly have been in the last couple of years. I know Miller has been a good one,
But for KR, a good win after bouncing back after the Challenge Cup, after winning the Challenge Cup, to bounce back with a response, it actually gives them the opportunity to rest a few players this week.
That's just what I was going to say. So the 6th spot they're clinging on to at the minute, or they're clinging on to the top 6 anyway. But winning this one means they can afford to drop the game on Friday against us. Good for us, great. But yeah, great for Hull KR as well, because the final is only a week away now. Any friendly fire, head knock, any suspension, any injury that's only a week long, you're going to miss the final. So I think they're doing the right thing not to risk their players. But if they'd lost this match,
They might not have been in that opportunity.
no, they might not have wanted to do that, because you think, well, we've got to get at least 2 points out of the next 2 games if we can.
And we mentioned Leigh before.
Leigh have got to do the same.
Leigh have got to try and get 2 points this week.
I know, but they'll be resting people as well.
But they're going to rest people. If they'd have won on Saturday,
They would have rested everyone.
they might be able to rest a few more. You don't want to be going into 2 back-to-back losses before
No.
you file. Now, another game that happened on Friday was an absolute thriller, really. It was quite a good game.
Yeah.
Saints Leeds. Saints winning 22-18.
Good
It
game.
was 12-12 at half-time. Try scorers, Jack Wellsby got a double, Ritson got a try and Will Hopawati. Makinson kicked 2 goals and Dodd kicked the other. For Leeds, Nene McDonald, Sam Walters, soon to be a Wigan player, Reece Martin and Martin kicked 3 goals. A game that I thought had real spells of high quality and then occasionally just seemed to dip. And then it went back to being really, really high quality again.
This was a good game. Off the back of St Helens losing
Yeah.
to Leigh and losing their 2 best props, the pressure was really on Leeds to win this one. And they didn't. St Helens responded quite well. Leeds were in front for a large portion of this game. And it was actually level for a long time as well. Walters, like you said, I think we've got to talk about Sam Walters, haven't we? The future Wigan player. Fantastic. Really well taken try. Went round Wellsby with some great feet. I mean, I know he's big, but he's not a prop, is he? He runs like a second rower.
The lines and the step that he has are more impactful from the second row, in my opinion.
I think he's a replacement for Pierce Paul, rather than
On that right hand side.
on the
Or
right.
basically a John Bateman
But
replacement.
where he moved, John Bateman replacement, But where he moved to, about 20 minutes into this game, he played an hour before he got subbed off. You know that? He played prop at the beginning, and then he moved out to the edge, that right edge, like you were saying. Scored a fantastic try, where he broke through the line, beat the fullback. with good feet and scored. Then he actually scored again. That got disallowed because someone was within 10 from the kick and Saints let it bounce. But that was the right decision. But from the right second row, he somehow chased the kick up, ended up on the left wing, and used his pace to get in the corner again. So on a day where there was no video ref, he'd have had 2 tries. One correctly ruled out, but through no fault of his own. He still took that try really well. I'm very excited for Sam Walters to add a different dimension to this team.
Now, in terms of Saints, they weren't the same Saints side that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years. They were a little bit more expansive in spells.
Yeah.
And that was demonstrated in, first of all, the Ritson try, where he finds himself in space on the left-hand side and scores in the corner. But Will Hopewati, I was very, very impressed, and he's a player that has been criticised in his time at St Helens.
Yeah, he was very good this game. He was deserved. He deserved the Man of the Match award, I think.
Yeah.
A lovely catch and pass.
Did he get the Man of the Match award?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I was gonna say.
A lovely catch and pass for Ritson's try, and then he scored one himself. I was really impressed. Hopewati did well. We saw a little bit of Moses Mbai off the bench, not too much. I'm sure they'll be looking to bring him in a bit more next week, similar to what we did with Dupree, basically.
His minutes will extend over time.
Yeah, of course, and he'll be another handy player, I'm sure, for them. Well, I've got to talk about one player for Saints. It's Johnny Lomax. What a player he's been, and what a player he continues to be.
I don't want to criticise Jack Welsby, because he got an awful lot of praise. But my first response to any Saints fans that I know is Welsby's 10 times the player when Lomax is on song.
Without question. Without question, Lomax is the piece that makes this team tick.
Yeah.
And he's the one player, or maybe Roby as well, but he's the one player who I've been jealous of the last however many years that Saints have had Lomax. Because could you imagine if he was in the same team as Field and French?
Because for me, the thing with Lomax is he makes everyone better.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels really weird complimenting Saints players so much.
No, but he deserves it.
Lomax makes Welsby a better player.
And you know what as well? He's not one for dancing around or goading opposition fans or anything like that. He seems to be a bit more reserved, and I like that in the half-back. Not quite as flashy as his teammate Welsby, but Welsby's try, right, his second one I think it was, he gets put through a gap by some brilliance from Lomax, and he goes in untouched because Lomax has created this gap for him, this massive gap, and all Welsby's had to do is run a line. Now, every good fullback would score that try. Not saying he's a bad fullback, every good fullback would score that try. It's been designed to absolute perfection by his half, and Phil Clark decides to scream down the microphone that Welsby is the best player in Super League, head and shoulders above everybody else. Well, he's good, but a better player has just put him through.
Yeah. That was my
That's my
first
worry.
response.
Like, Welsby can't be the best player in Super League because he's not the best player on his team. A better player has just put him through. And I get the whole, Wigan fans always hate Welsby and they never give him any credit. But I genuinely believe that Lomax makes him a much better player, and Lomax is the star of this team.
He's the player in this team that I always think, if he has a good day, Saints will play well.
Yeah.
He's the one who I think can drag the rest of them with him and get them playing.
And he doesn't make mistakes in defence. He doesn't really kick poorly. He's just a solid halfback. Really good upside. He's consistently solid, but he's got a really good upside. Lomax is...
But that's not to take away from Welsby.
No,
like,
he's
we watched the highlights again before.
He's a good fullback.
And the 2 tries that he scores, I can't remember if it was his first or his second where he barged over. That was one of them where I just got that sheer determination and strength and a little bit of I know how good I am.
Well,
I know you can't stop me there.
You know who his childhood hero is?
Yeah.
It's Sam Tompkins, and he models his game on Tompkins. And actually, I think he does remind me a lot of those early years of Tompkins.
Yeah.
The question will be, number one, does he stay at fullback? And does he then turn into the sort of fullback that Tompkins became?
The
many
game
ways,
control.
In many ways, the game control, yeah, because Lomax isn't going to carry on forever. Roby's already finishing this time.
It'd be interesting to see how he develops.
At some point, him and Dodd are going to have to control this team between them, you would imagine.
And it'd be interesting to see whether the NRL pick him up.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Because it's the one position that they're probably a bit affluent on in the NRL.
Well, I think he could go over there and play in the halves, and I think he could go over there and play centre as well, to be honest.
So do I. It'd just be interesting to see how they would take him. I'm not sure.
There's not many teams need a fullback, but there's plenty need a halfback.
Yeah,
say that.
That's my thinking when I sort of think about it. Now, this was a 6 o'clock kickoff in France. Catalans versus Salford. Salford taking a
Saturday,
really
after our game, I suppose.
Salford taking a large amount of fans. I was very impressed with the turnout that they took.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they didn't get a result or probably a performance that would back that up.
No, the fans were let down by the players on this occasion. They deserved a better performance than this.
Yeah. So, 42-0. It was 22-0 at half-time. Both halves probably equally poor. Try scorers for Catalan was Sam got one, Tiaki Chan, soon to be a Wigan player.
Yeah.
Tom Johnston got 2, Tyrone May, Adam Kieran, who again got 2 and is due to sign for the Warriors at the end of the season.
Oh, Tyrone May is linked with Leigh Leopards as well this
Yeah.
week. So this is unfortunate, really, that of the try scorers, the 5 try scorers there, including the ones who kicked the goals, there's only Tom Johnson who could be left for Catalan next year. So this is their time, isn't it?
Yeah, this is their time.
Tompkins retiring, Chan and Kieran both joining Wigan. Tyrone May is out of contract and is heavily linked with the Leopards.
While we're talking about people that might be leaving Catalans, rumours of Mitch Pearce to the Roosters.
There will always be rumours, as long as Mitchell Pearce plays well for Catalan, that he wants to go home. I am less convinced by this one as I was for Clifford, just as an age thing.
The other one,
but the Roosters might be desperate.
But the other one's Takiaho.
Yeah,
he's been linked with the Bulldogs.
So Takiaho is linked. And who's going to be replacing him? There's somebody going to be replacing Takiaho, and I can't remember who it is.
No, I'm not sure. I've not seen anything about a replacement at Catalan.
I think I have heard that this is going to be a replacement, but I can't remember who it is. I mean, Sate is joining them, isn't he?
Yeah. But Catalans again, keep winning.
Yeah, fantastic performance.
Keep just doing enough.
Keep rolling up on top of the league. 4 points clear with 7 games to go. If this was the first past the post league, they'd be getting really nervous now.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It sort of takes the pressure off the fact that...
That's true. They've won the League Leaders Shield before, have they?
No.
I think, yeah, they did. They did when they beat Saints at Magic and McManus was celebrating too early. Remember that was for the League Leaders Shield, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember that now.
Magic Weekend.
It was a professional win from the Dragons to just
put them to the sword.
They're playing so well.
They put them to the sword. And the interesting thing I tweeted about was the win that Toulouse also had. So the 2 French teams, there's only 2 French teams in the top 2 divisions, Super League and the Championship. Catalan obviously winning 42-0 here. And Toulouse beat Keighley 64-0. 64-0. So you go 106-0 for the French teams over Salford and Keighley there combined. I think Toulouse, obviously with a bigger win there, but both keeping their opponent to 0 they'll be pleased with.
Salford, on the other hand, obviously Dupree's moved on. I'm starting to hear a few rumours about
Briley and Croft. There'll always be those rumours swirling, especially when you sell Dupree. People think, why have they sold Dupree? They must be needing the money, or they must be selling this person.
With the issue of they turned down money for Dupree earlier on, and it appears that they then came and spoke to Wigan to take
asked
him.
For it back, yeah. Asked for the money again.
That is not a good position to be in, is it? Really. No. They've got Croft on a big contract, I presume, a 7-year contract.
Croft would take a lot of money to take him off their hands, but
They might have to.
If they're desperate, they're desperate. I mean, there's really worrying signs coming from Salford. You think about the high that Salford were on 4 years ago, where they filled that away end.
5,000 people.
5,000 people.
Near enough.
And every time you go to Old Trafford now, I mean, we go most often to Old Trafford to watch cricket, don't we? But whenever you go to Old Trafford now for the final, the grand final, or for us to watch cricket, whenever you walk past the football stadium, there are signs up, handwritten signs up, basically saying, Salford Red Devils took 5,000 people to Wigan for a semi-final, and then took this many to Old Trafford. I can't remember the number. Get down to the regular season games. Your team needs you, basically. And you know what? It's true.
It's true, but there's so many issues with. Like, we went to Salford and we ended up parking at Salford. There was over about 6,000 on, and it took us the best part of 90 minutes to get off the car park.
Yeah.
That is not appealing every week.
And we blocked in Paul Sculthorpe while we were at it.
Yeah.
So when we went again for the England game against Fiji,
we had to park miles away.
We parked miles away and walked it, but that's £9 that the Salford club don't get. And if loads of other people thought the same thing when they went for the regular season game, then that's a lot of money the Salford club don't get. It's just not
it's
great.
not in a good location, is it?
No, the location.
And I don't know how you can fix
brilliant. The location itself is fine, but the
access.
The access is, they need another road, basically. Just that one road that comes in, and there's a shop there as well. So it just the lights make it impossible.
I just think, from the positivity that they've had, the things that are starting to be rumoured aren't a good sign, and I hope they can sort it quick.
Yeah.
I really do, because we want strong Salford.
Well, definitely. Salford are one of the oldest clubs, and really we want them to be doing well. It's a big market.
Now,
sorry.
Sunday.
I've got one game left. In my excitement, I just went completely past it on the laptop here.
I sat on this podcast last week in our predictions, and if you don't listen to the prediction bit, go back and listen, because I sat and I said, I can't do it. I can't back Wakey. Wow, I wish I had. 42 points to 6, Wakefield have beat Warrington.
Yep.
It was 22-0 at half-time.
Yeah, and I was following along with this game, and when Paul Vaughan scored first in the second half, I was thinking,
oh no.
Ooh, that could be interesting. No, not so. Wakefield put them to the sword in the second half, finishing with quite a few tries in the last 10 minutes to open up the gap. 42-6, completely reduce the points difference gap between them and Castleford to only a few points now.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that, actually. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, because Cass lost by 20 and Wakefield won by 36. So
Wakefield's point difference is only 12 worse.
yeah, and before today it would have been 60, 70 worse. So huge win at home. That's 3 home wins in a row now, and 3 out of 4
from 4 in the league.
3 from 4 in the league when you consider the loss away to Huddersfield.
Well, let's go through the try scorers. Innis Senior on his
What do you call it? Re-debut?
No, is it not the third time he's gone there? His re-debut. He got 4 tries.
Yeah.
Jowett
he should keep leaving and coming back and get 4 tries on his debut.
Jowett scored, Hood scored, Tom Lynham scored, and Proctor got his first try.
Yeah.
A player who's vastly improved since Fafita's returned. I know he talked about how important Fafita's been.
Yeah.
But he's made other people better. Max Jowett kicked 3 goals and Luke Gale kicked 2. Try scorers, as we mentioned, for Warrington was Paul Vaughan, and Ratchford kicked the goal.
Luke Gale, let's talk about Wakefield first,
as
the home team and as the winners. Luke Gale and Fafita have transformed this team, but you have got to give some credit to Mark Applegarth for turning it around when a lot of people had started to doubt him.
Yeah, we doubted him. Be open and honest and say that being 15 games in and not winning and being nilled so many times, I couldn't see a way that he could fix it.
Yeah.
But 3 wins from 4.
Clearly, it was a personnel thing, and he's got a couple of generals now. He's got Gale and he's got Fafita.
Again, Gale has made Mason Lino, Will Dagger, Jowett, all these players around him, the creative span, better players.
Yeah.
Because he's just a general. Fafita has brought some momentum going forward and brought everyone with him.
Tony and
Tony looks a different player.
Proctor. Yeah.
They look a different team, and
they're a different prospect now.
And
Certainly.
all that. I always think that coaches get all the stick, but they don't get any of the praise.
That's true.
And I think it's actually time to say, as good as Fafita and Gale have been for this team, the coach has done this.
Applegarth has done well, hasn't
He's fixed a lot of the issues. And I'll hold my hands up and say I was wrong. I didn't think he could fix it, but he's moved on some people like
James Ford.
James Ford, playing staff. He's Tafua's moved on. There's another one who's moved on as well, whose name escapes me as we talk about it now.
Lee Gaskell.
Lee Gaskell.
Bradford.
He's let these players go, and I thought Gaskell was a strange let go.
Yeah. Well, we might talk a bit more about Bradford in a bit, but yeah, Gaskell, weird one to decide to let leave, but clearly it's worked. Yeah, well done to him. 2 sides to every story though, and the losers this week were Warrington, again. Sorry, Warrington fans, but we really thought this was going to be your chance to get back on track. Hasn't worked. Only 6 points against Wakefield, and to ship 42 in 80 minutes is really not on to anybody, never mind Wakefield.
Don't get me wrong, I know we lost to Wakefield.
By 1 point.
By 1 point, and we hadn't been in the form that we were in.
Yeah.
They've just had 2 weeks to prep for this, having not played in a semi-final.
That was our fault as well.
Yeah, but they didn't play in a semi-final. They had 2 weeks to prep for the Wakefield game. Darryl Powell knowing that he's under a lot of pressure, and they put that performance out.
This was a weird one. Following this one, it wasn't on television. Following this one on the radio and on Twitter was a weird one. You could almost feel the tension in the Warrington side and in the Warrington spectators without seeing them.
Yeah, without being there, without anything.
Being there, without seeing them on television. You could hear the boos on the radio. You could then hear all these stories start to come out on Twitter about some of the players crying on the pitch after the game.
Swearing at fans.
Swearing at the fans. You know, some of them were shaking hands with the fans and some were apologising and some were just abusing the fans perhaps, and they weren't happy with the treatment they were getting, which, you know, you have a right to respond to that. But after you've just served up this performance, I think the fans have got every right to demand better from their team, which was sitting at the top of the table 2 months ago.
Which was winning everything after 8 from 8.
Yeah. And
now,
the last thing we got to talk about is the head coach who...
Well, just before we get on to that, there's one try that I want to talk about, and I've seen this clip over and over and over again, and I can't tell you how many times I've watched it.
It's Tom Lynham's try.
It's Tom Lynham's try.
Yeah, I knew it.
The Sportsman put it on Twitter, and I'll retweet it in a minute so you can go and watch it.
I think they were putting it on as like, check out this good finish. And it was a good finish.
But it highlighted so much that was wrong.
But yeah, people started to notice some of the bad defence in it.
From the play of the ball, Liam Hood gives it out to Luke Gale, and they're 20 metres out. At this point, there was 4 Warrington defenders lined up against 5 Wakefield players. Cassiano, Curry... 5 Warrington defenders, I just can't see him on the screen.
Duffy is shifting.
Duffy's at full back. Curry, Josh Drinkwater, Stephen Ratchford and Matty Ashton on the wing. Gale runs 7 metres before anyone takes a step towards him. Cassiano then only tries to tackle him after the ball's gone. Ben Curry follows a short ball run from a Tony and then doesn't slide.
Yeah.
Josh Drinkwater is now dealing with Mason Lino going at him. Ratchford bites in. Ashton bites in.
Well,
Into no man
but
land.
by this time, they have no choice.
They've got
Their
no
decision
choice.
has been made by poor efforts inside.
But the worrying thing for me is Cassiano or Curry. You see that you've been beaten. You see that you're behind.
There's no hustle.
You slide. You do anything to help your mate out. And there's not 4 players jogging. The only one who puts a sprint in is Matt Duffy at full-back trying to get across the line.
Well, that's just his job.
And Ashton, who's been caught out, coming in to try and deal with the centre, sprinting to try and get back. And Lynham scores in the corner. And as it goes, after the try, you can see them just looking round, shaking their heads. That's a culture problem. That's an effort problem. And Powell comes out in his post-match speech and says, if I had the squad, if I had this, I would have dropped players. I wouldn't have picked players. Some would have been left out of the 17.
Not good enough. And you know, that try wasn't even the try that made it 42-6 after the hooter. That was Jowett's. This was a try just after Vaughan's.
Yeah.
5 minutes after Paul Vaughan had made
When
it
it was 22-6.
20 points to 6, I think it was, or 22-6, yeah.
That's not good enough. And it suggests there's an issue in the playing group, whether that's with the coach or just in general.
Well, we've all had a bit of fun this week with the whole Darryl Powell thing. Because, let's face it, he played up to the fans a lot when they were 8 from 8.
Well,
He was in that bar singing Wigan songs. He was taking pictures with bucket hats and selfies and things. And that's all
telling
fine.
us how they've got big Sam Cassiano back and big Josh Maguire.
Yeah, that didn't age very well. But then that's all well and good. But then to start making excuses and blaming your players when things don't go well.
If you're going to take the credit, you've got to take the stick as well.
Exactly. And
I've spoken on this
surprised he's
podcast
helped them.
before about Sean Wayne saying that whenever we lost, he took the blame.
Yeah.
But whenever we won, he put the positives on the players, while still highlighting some things that were wrong and we needed to fix. He never took the credit.
So
Good coaches don't take the credit.
So that's the thing, and that's why so many people have been perhaps enjoying this downfall of Darryl Powell, because it did feel like he wanted to be the man, and then when it wasn't going his way, he would blame absolutely anything and everything apart from himself, which is not what a good coach does, as you've said. So he has gone. It looked on Sunday night like he was dead man walking, I'll be honest. Where he was interviewed and talking about not being a crisis and, we need to play. I'd love to leave these guys out, but I can't. And
it was weird. Obviously, the rumours start, but they started straight away. He's not got on the coach with the players. He's not travelling back with them. And as soon as I started seeing things like that, I went, it's game over. It's just inevitable.
So it was actually first thing Monday morning, I think they announced it, but yeah.
It was inevitable that he was gone.
That post-match press conference that he did, ironically in front of a massive Wakefield Trinity badge, for a guy who synonymous with Castleford, to be at his worst point, having been battered, and then to be making excuses and to be talking about personnel and him being dealt a bad hand. Not true. They spent so much money.
They bought in George Williams.
They bought
Matt
George
Duffy.
Williams for massive money. Matt Duffy's on massive money.
Think about who came in this year.
A massive extension.
Paul Vaughan came in.
Paul Vaughan and Josh
Cassiano
Maguire
came in.
expensive. Cassiano and Dudson and Drinkwater.
These are all players that have been signed this year. Powell was at the club when they signed Williams, Drinkwater, Matautia,
Holmes,
I forgot that he'd been and left.
Minikin,
Vaughan, Cassiano, Dudson.
not Michele. Although, yeah, Michele, because he's back again.
Yeah. The other prop.
Maguire,
Vaughan, Cassiano.
Dudson, Bullock.
I think Bullock was there just beforehand. But you get what I'm saying.
It's a full 13.
This is his team. James Harrison.
Yeah, James Harrison. It's full 13, this.
Matty Nicholson.
Yeah.
These are players that he's brought in. He brought in Matty Russell.
Yeah.
And then you're having a go at the players that you've brought in.
saying you don't have the personnel. Well, you've spent as much as any other team. Not being funny.
I talk about squads an awful lot and the importance of having a squad. Though 1 to 17 can compete with anyone.
I think their squad is. I think they've got a good squad on paper and an very expensive squad. I think to then turn around and say you've not had the personnel that you want and you've not been able to leave people out and you've not been able to. No, it's not true.
It's just not, is it?
It's just not true. Who would you want to leave out? I just don't get it. Then he talks about Cassiano's better off the bench. We'll play him off the bench then, you're the head coach.
Yeah. It's his decision.
It just baffles me, like, the excuses that he makes. For someone who's meant to be head coach of a competent fighting team at the top of the table.
I think it's only then fair to mention the comments that have been made today by the... I forget his name now.
Who are you on about? The person who mentioned the new coach? Fossey?
No. About Darryl Powell's appointment, Stuart Middleton.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Coming out and said today on BBC Radio Merseyside, he was asked whether his appointment was wrong, and Middleton said, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but probably yes, I think we did.
I've never heard that before.
He continued to say, we've got to look at ourselves as well, and we got it wrong. We had too many changes too quick, and I think that the way we treated people wasn't quite right. That didn't set well with me.
Wigan Athletic made an appointment about Christmas time. They appointed Colo Torre as manager. He had 9 games. He didn't win any. And then they sacked him and appointed somebody who'd applied the first time. And they still didn't say it was the wrong choice. Not publicly, anyway. Even though everybody in the world knew they'd made the wrong choice. They didn't publicly say it.
It's a weird one. I'm reading this quote again. I think we've learned that in future we've got to ask a few more questions and not just give somebody a free rein and let them do what they want.
Right, that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. What do you mean ask a few more questions? Like so you're then saying your interview process isn't up to much?
Yeah, we have to challenge things if we think it's not right. We didn't get it right last year.
The problem now
is... sure we don't go through that procedure again.
The problem now is it's August. So unless you're going to give it to an interim for the rest of the season, which is out of the question if you're Warrington and you're still harbouring hopes of winning something, you're not going to have enough outstanding candidates to do a proper interview process anyway. You're going to have to basically give the job to whoever wants it.
And then alongside that, he then goes on to say that obviously the Warrington chief exec, Carl Fitzpatrick, he's come under criticism from the fan base. But Middleton said it's unfair to place all the blame on him. He's got to run the business, the stadium, the training facilities, the employees in his role. And he works very hard.
It's his job. So is Chris Radlinski, and nobody ever gives him any stick, apart from that one weird person who always tweets us saying he's terrible at his job. But we know he's good at his job. That's exactly Chris Radlinski's job. He does all those things. You can't moan. You can't go on the Out of Your League podcast after 5 or 6 weeks or whatever Carl Fitzpatrick did and get interviewed by Sky Sports in his office talking about how brilliant everything is at Warrington and how brilliant he's doing and what an amazing job he's doing. And then as soon as things get tough, say, the job's too hard. That's the job.
This was then the following comment. He doesn't pick the players. He facilitates it and does the research on who is available. But ultimately, it's the coach that says who he wants.
Yeah, so they're blaming everything on Powell then. This is Warrington in a nutshell. This is where they've gone wrong.
Putting the blame on the man who's already gone.
They've put the blame on the man that Powell is just going to be the fall guy, isn't it? And this is going to carry on. This process is probably going to repeat because they've let Powell go, and Powell made mistakes. And the Warrington fans, it's not fair to say the Warrington fans are putting the blame purely on Fitzpatrick because they were blaming Powell as well.
But they were blaming the players as well.
And they were blaming the players. They've actually spread the blame around because that's where it deserves to be. Powell got some things wrong, but he's not the only one. And to say he is, and to say that this whole season, every problem has stemmed from poor matchday squads and the choice of players is outrageous. That is just simply not true. Every problem Warrington have had this year has not come from the team selection.
If it was the team selection, why were you not raising it when they were 8 from 8? If you genuinely think that,
it's not been the only problem. It can't be the only problem.
Because it runs far deeper.
You can't say, "Oh, Fitzpatrick's got such a tough job." it's not his fault the team's losing. It's who's picking the team. No, it's everybody.
I really don't like them comments.
No, I don't like them at all. They've thrown a guy under the bus.
And it's a weird one. I sit and look now. Who would want to...
Oh, who'd want to join that team?
Well, who'd want to take on the coaching for so you're going to struggle recruiting players for next year and the year after if you've not got a coach in and you've not announced who's going to be coaching you first of all. But then, apologies, if they go and get Justin Holbrook, which is the rumoured one, but I'm hearing he's not going to sign now.
Yeah.
Holbrook is going to want to run that club. He's going to want the academy produced a certain way, the same way Maguire did when he came in and Wayne did it for us and now Matty Pete's doing it, where everyone is singing off the same sheet and these are our expectations and you follow me and we do this. That's what the top coaches do. Wayne Bennett, every club that he's ever run, Ivan Cleary, Craig Bellamy, they've run these clubs for 10, 15 years.
Even Tim Sheens.
Yeah. Trent Robinson at the Roosters, his first real bad year at the Roosters. They set the club up and they control everything. The development plans, how are we getting the next set of kids so that they can step up and do a role exactly perfect. Everyone knows where to be, everyone knows what to do. And if you're saying we've got to start questioning them, we've got to start asking these questions, who's gonna take that on if they've got a question? If you've got to question everything that they're gonna do, it's a really weird situation, and I would not like to be in it.
No, I'm very glad that's not my team. In that position where there's infighting and blame. Public blaming and all that. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? You've got
everyone's responsible for every result.
You've got a chief exec blaming the coach. You've got a coach blaming the players. You've got the fans blaming all three. That is not a good place. And yes, Powell's left, and that might be short term a good thing, but long term they need a few appointments.
A coach leaves, all the players go, who's coming in? We've got to pick our things up so we get picked next week.
Yeah.
Everyone picks up.
The new coach, what's it called? New coach, bounce back or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
New manager bounce, that's it.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Right, that wraps up Super League. We've just got a little bit of news to talk about, really. So, obviously, we've already mentioned...
Blake Austin. Going to Castleford after making some disparaging comments about...
Gary Etherington
and Leeds as a whole, and pushing to leave. They've sent him on loan to Cass for the rest of the season. Very, very weird. I've never seen a player talk so openly. So critically about his current employer. I've heard people talk about the previous employers like that, but their current employer,
especially when you're trying to get a contract from that employer.
I think he'd given up. I think that's why he was making these comments. Was he asked for the new contract, and they said no, and he gave up, and that's when he starts talking about. I mean that nonsense about playing against New Zealand. So that game Leeds against New Zealand, that warm-up game was in the calendar for 5 months.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's a week after the grand final. When he made that, he probably didn't think they'd get to the grand final. But it's a week after the grand final, and it was a week before the start of the World Cup. So somebody like Reece Martin is not going to want to play. He just captained Leeds to a grand final. He's about to... He was PNG captain, wasn't he? So he's about to be captain his country in a World Cup.
Yeah.
I can see why he wouldn't want to play. I could see why a lot of them wouldn't want to play a week after the grand final. And for him to say...
It's in your contract.
For him to say it's in your contract, okay, yeah, fine. I think he probably could have let out the players who were playing in the World Cup.
Yeah.
I think there was probably a compromise there. But that weren't Austin. Austin was still allowed to play in it. Okay, if you let... So let's say you say, okay, Reece Martin, you've got a great reason for not playing. You cannot play. Fine. Oledzki, same. Whatever. But then Blake Austin will still have to play because he's not picked in the World Cup. So to be talking about that as if it was... Because he was saying it was just decided 2 weeks before, and that's just not true.
In between semi and final.
Yeah, it's just not true. That it wasn't when it was decided at all. And then he's talking about What else was he saying about Leeds? And he actually on record in the same podcast saying you have to sign for Leeds if you're a young player in Yorkshire, otherwise who are you going to sign for? Cass.
And their facilities
And
aren't
their
great.
facilities aren't up to much. Well, guess what? Now you're in them.
Now, some real positive news. And as I'm trying to be my most un-rugby league head here when I have this discussion, because I am looking for positives in this. We have
I just seen Conrad Hurrell out for a month.
out for a month.
Yeah.
There's some more breaking news.
There you go.
The international calendar. How long have we begged anyone at the RFL to listen about having an international calendar? It's now planned till 2030, which isn't perfect, I know, but 7 years in advance, I'll take that.
Oh, I'll definitely take that.
There is some negatives here. So the World Cup in 2026 is
In New Zealand, right? Australia,
New Zealand.
Yeah. So Wayne kind of let that slip. Sean Wayne kind of let that slip before the France game, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was only a rumour then.
But this World Cup in 2026, brilliant, it's booked in. And the fact that then 2 years later,
The
there's
Women's
going to
World
be
Cup.
a Women's World Cup. Well, they're playing in 2026 as well. And then they're having one 2 years later.
And then
So the
25th,
standalone.
So there's going to be a standalone World Cup for the
Every
men
2
or the
years.
women every 2 years.
I am completely happy with
Yes,
that.
very happy with that.
So
But
the Women's World Cup will be 2028, and
the
then
problem is
the teams.
there's only 10 teams. And I thought one of the best things about the World Cup just gone was that we had more teams. And I always thought it's going to be more teams, get more teams in. 16 was it last time? Get 18, get 20, you know. It hasn't worked like that. It was never going to get to 32, realistically, anytime soon. But for it to drop to 10 is disappointing.
From 16, was it?
It's really disappointing. And I think the problem is they've seen results such as England putting 100 on Greece. Australia, how many did they put on Scotland? 80, at least.
But Australia could put 80 on anyone.
I know, but
We put 60 on Samoa and they got to the final.
Wales were competitive in every single game, and they had no full-time players, I don't think, or maybe one or two.
My issue is you don't get better by not playing.
No. No, there are things, and there are things in that, caveats in that try to explain what's going to happen to these teams that don't make the World Cup. There are going to be World Series, there's going to be Euros, there's going to be one for the Middle East, I think there's going to be one for Down Under, where the other teams play and try to improve. I think they should do that and get them in the World Cup.
Get them playing as many games as possible.
So let's take Wales, for example. Wales in the last World Cup lost all 3 games. But they were competitive.
They didn't get battered in.
They didn't get battered in any. The PNG, Cook Islands and Tonga were the games I think they played. I'm pretty sure they lost all 3 games. But everybody was saying, well done Wales, you've competed with all players part-time apart from 2 or 3. John Keir was coach, I believe.
Yeah.
They had good kits, good like merchandise that you could buy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said, just take this group of players, this 23, 25 players, however many it is, stick them in Cardiff, put them in the Championship or put them in Super League. John Keir as coach, these two kits, and see what happens. And I think it would work. You wouldn't obviously have those players because they're all contracted to teams, like Rodri Lloyd's contracted to Swinton and he's Swinton captain. So it's not exactly like that. That's how it works. But they've got to play more. Wales have got to play more games. Ireland have got to play more games. Scotland have got to play more games. France have got to play more games. So do we. But we've got 3 tests against Tonga coming up.
Yeah.
I don't know what anybody else is doing. They should play each other. Greece, Spain, Italy. I don't know if that's the plan. Serbia could be involved. They're number 10 in the world now, actually, Serbia. They could be involved. Malta could be involved. This is their plan for improving these teams, is to take them out of the World Cup so they don't get to compete against the best players, and instead do these games against each other. I don't see a reason why you can't do both.
I always think about obviously we play cricket. We talk about that quite a bit. Do you remember like playing against an ex-pro?
Oh yeah. I've played against 3 or 4 people that have been in video games.
And you're like,
That's always a big deal.
but getting to play against Latrell Mitchell.
Well, I've never played against them.
Obviously you've not, but you know what I mean. That you can't take that away from someone. You're representing your country
No, I
against the best team in the world, or you're playing against. You lined up at centre.
What about Lebanon?
They've got Mitchell Moses.
Would Lebanon be inside the top 10 before the World Cup? I bet it's probably the answer's probably no. It'd be close, but
And that's a team with
I don't know.
Mitchell Moses, Adam Dewey,
Abbas Miski.
Abbas Miski,
Josh
Josh Mansour, Kiraz. Is it Kiraz?
Kiraz, yeah, Jacob Kiraz.
Some seriously good players that are getting better, and none of them are going to retire before then.
No, they're getting better because they are playing better opposition. That is the answer. That is the answer. I'm really disappointed in this.
It's the one negative of this.
Yeah, going down to 10 teams, I'm really, really disappointed at. And if it's just for one World Cup, okay. But I don't think it will be. I think reducing the number of teams...
It feels to me that it's a cost exercise more than anything else.
And I think they don't want the massively one-sided games that they had in the last World Cup, even though that will improve those nations more than
we'll just have to
playing
cut
each
some
other.
more, because there was a big sided score there. How are you going to pick these teams that get in?
Well, it'll be the top 10 in the rankings, but maybe that means teams will play more games against each other. I don't know. If you want to improve in the rankings, you have to play games. Australia, they're like number 4 now because they've not played since the World Cup and they've no plans to play.
Did they not have a one-off test?
No, they've not.
They're not playing New Zealand, did? Oh no,
No,
they didn't this year. No?
They don't. They've nothing planned either.
But let's just mention the other things that have come out with this.
Yeah.
The men and women will tour Australia for the Ashes in 2025. I hope it's as GB.
I don't think it matters really. They're all English.
I would like
anyway.
it to be GB, but
GB is more marketable, but I don't think it will be. I think the year before a World Cup, you're probably going as England, aren't you?
yeah. And then I think, did they say there's a Kangaroos tour?
It said Kangaroo and New Zealand tours are going to continue as normal, which...
But I think, did they not say the Kangaroo tour is going to be in 2029? So as if an Ashes tour is going to be the year before a World Cup,
Well,
which is what we said we would
I'm
like
sure some people suggested that
on a podcast.
on a podcast very similar to this one.
Mm.
IMG, if you're listening, hit me up. I've got way more ideas.
Right. So that wraps up the news, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're going to come back, take a quick break, and then we'll review the NRL really, really quickly and have a look at every
League table.
table.
And see where we're at.
Yeah, see where we're at. So, as I say every week, we are actually going to try and keep this really short. We've made an agreement that we're not going to go into any real detail on any particular team, but that probably will still happen.
No, we'll still do it, yeah.
And then we won't praise any players, but then we probably will, because there's been some big results this week. Starting off on Thursday was the Broncos versus the Roosters, 32-10.
I mean, this is last Thursday. Because
Yeah.
the Roosters have actually won this morning. We're recording a day late. So
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
the Roosters have won, but listen next week for that one. On this week, the Roosters lost to Brisbane,
Now,
32-10.
last week I said 7 games left if they want to make the 8.
They have to win 5 of them.
They have to. I basically said they have to win 6, I think.
All right, yeah.
They won that week. They've now lost. Can they win the next 6? They've already won the first one, as we said.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
And even then, I don't know if they make it.
No, it's going to be close, isn't it?
A few rumblings at the Roosters that coaches are going to leave, but then Trent Robinson said that everyone's here. Who's here is going to be here next year. Well, what if... It's a really weird comment, because what if people want to leave? What if someone just decides they want a new challenge? What do you say then? I don't know. Broncos, how good Adam Reynolds? Just controlling the game.
Adam Reynolds, and nice for Herbie, get a good try. this week. He's only got 2 more months left as a Bronco, hasn't he, Herbie? He's going to the Dolphins. And I'm hoping he's going to play for England this November. But, yeah, good work from him.
Let's move on then. On to Friday. The first game on Friday was the West Tigers versus the Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs winning 32 points to 18. They'll be a bit disappointed conceding 18 points, really. The big news for them was Latrell was back.
Yeah, he was back. And did you see when they tried to put him in touch and he just stood there laughing? That was such like
he's a man mountain, isn't
yeah.
he? Let's be honest. He is so good. But I do want to talk about one man for West. How good is Happy Coruscant?
Yeah.
They've signed him for another 2 years.
Big money.
He made a big tackle on Lachlan Ilias, where Ilias looked like he was through. He'd rounded the full back. And Coruscant comes from behind and basically punches the ball out of his hand to cause the knock on.
I was very impressed.
It was a really big play. Although I've heard people complaining that they thought it was a hip drop, even though he doesn't land on him.
No,
it was interesting. I'll have a look at that again. The Rabbitohs, they won't be happy about conceding 18 points.
But they march on towards.
They're just starting to get going. Another win.
They've got all those players back. We mentioned a few weeks ago they're missing these many players, important players, and they've got them all back now. So they're a force to be reckoned with.
I think, I said it last week, if they make the 8, they can win it from anywhere. But there's not many teams in there that I don't think could win it from anywhere.
There's lots of good teams this year.
Yeah. Now, a team that a couple of weeks ago we thought was out of it, Lewis picked them last week to win the comp. The Storm batter the Eel. Yeah, the Storm batter the Eels, 46-16. King Guthor with a shaved head now.
He looked ridiculous.
Didn't really change his...
He looked ridiculous. You know why? You ever see that video of Steve Stricker, the golfer, when he had
when he had that hat on?
When he had that hat on and his whole face was tanned, but the top of his bald head was white, and he had a tan line where the gap in your baseball cap is. That was what Guthor reminded me of, because he clearly shaved it the morning of the game or the night before, because the rest of his head was tanned, but there was no hair on top of his head, so it was just pale bald. He just looked ridiculous, didn't it? But it distracted a lot of people from how poor the Eels were.
The Storm, God.
Guthor's bald head distracted a lot of the Eels fans. I think the Storm were good. Harry Grant and Jerome Hughes absolutely ran the show, and I was watching this game, and just when I thought...
Okay. No. I text you, and we were talking about how good Grant and Holmes would be.
Yeah.
And then
Jerome Hughes and Harry
your
Grant.
text to me said...
Is Munster playing?
How have they got so many points and Munster's been so quiet? And then he puts maybe 5 steps on.
That was ridiculous.
That is the try of the week.
It was reminiscent of a couple at J Field have done, especially the one away at Leigh.
Yeah.
Where he danced to...
but I think with the Munster one, though, it's the step. He then steps off his right to straighten it up, and the goose step to beat 2 tacklers at the legs. Wow, he is a special player, and there's a reason he demands $1 million.
Yeah.
Now, a team that I thought were out of it, I've got to be honest.
Well, speaking of $1 million players, Kellen Ponga.
Yeah. Kalen Ponga
showed why he deserved it.
Probably with the form of his life, really.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that's a bold call to say about a player so good as Ponga.
No, I think you're probably right there. I think he is in the form of his life. I think being left out the Queensland team has almost
upset him.
Well, maybe, but it gave him 3 weeks off in prime in the middle of the season.
And it's actually funny, he's come out and said that he contemplated retiring with the head knocks that he had at the start of the year, end of last year and this year. But they took on the Raiders in Canberra.
Yeah.
And lost 28 points to 6. Not many teams go to Canberra and do well,
this was a disappointing week for the Raiders.
But Kalen Ponga is probably saving Adam O'Brien's job.
Well, it was nice to see Dominic Young score again. So 20 tries now for Dominic Young.
Could he win the Golden Boot?
Alex Johnson will have him covered, won't he?
Don't know. Johnston missed a spell.
Who was winning it? Mike Acevo was winning early doors, wasn't
Yeah, he got a 3 and a 4, I think, in back-to-back weeks.
he? Yeah.
But we're talking about what Ponga's doing.
Let's have a look, see who's doing well.
I honestly believe that apologies, that Adam O'Brien was in danger of losing his job as the Knights head coach.
Oh yeah, I agree, definitely.
And I don't know why they moved him to into the halves. I really don't know. Someone, and I hope it's Adam O'Brien, has gone and stuck with his gut and put Ponga back to full back, because Hastings and Tyson Gamble are doing brilliant together. But Kalen Ponga at full back is one of the best players in the world. And he has to play full back because that's how devastating he is in attack.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to the next game, and that was the Dragons versus the Sea Eagles. Things don't get much better for the Dragons.
No, they were struggling. Well, they were struggling. They still are, really.
The Sea Eagles winning 24 points to 18. Apologies. Still unwell. Manly winning this week against a Dragons side that aren't that impressive. We've talked about them before. I can't find any positives for the Dragons. I really can't.
No. I know what you mean.
They're a side that just don't...
Perhaps the play of Tyrell Sloan.
Yeah, Zach Lomax.
Yeah,
There's a few players that stand out for me. Ben Hunt.
Right, but doing all right. Yeah, Dominic Young, you're right, is top.
Is top.
Try scorer.
Oh, that's good to know.
With 20.
Be interesting to see when the last time...
AJ's on 18 though, he's gonna have him covered, isn't he?
But if they get into the playoffs...
AJ's gonna have him covered, I bet. AJ's on 18.
We played a game extra.
Pereira's also on 18. Sevo, Ronaldo and Gutherson and Lionel Richie and Jermaine Isako are all on 16. But
Any of them could win it.
Yeah, Dom
Young. Only an hat-trick away from
Dom
being...
Young is 2 in front, but AJ seems to get a hat-trick every time we watch him, so...
Yeah.
It'd be fun to for Dominic Young to win.
To see an Englishman.
Yeah, and, Herbie, where is Herbie? He's got 11. So Herbie's doing well as well in the top 25. Yeah, but go on, Dom.
But let's go back on to a Manly. They just aren't the same threat without Tom Trbojevic, and I know that sounds like such a stupid statement because
he's one of the best players, yeah.
Who would be? But you look at how the Panthers dealt with the Cleary injury, and it didn't derail their season. It honestly feels to me, if Tom Trbojevic stays fit for a season, Manly can win the Premiership. If he doesn't, they can't.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
And that is too much. That is too much. He is more important to St. I'm going to go bold when I say this. I think he's more important to St. George, to Manly, than any other player in the comp is to their team.
I think Nico Hines might have an argument for that. And Sean Johnson might have an argument for that. But it's not definite. I think you're probably in the right ballpark. Look, I mean, the bad news for the rest of the league is that Nathan Cleary's back.
Yeah, and on form.
Yeah.
But look at Tom Trbojevic when he plays. They are a top 4 side.
Yeah.
And he doesn't play. They're a side that's 10th to 12th.
But yeah, bottom 4 probably.
Yeah. I still think they beat West.
There's so many bad teams.
The Dragons.
I know there's a few bad teams, but
I still think they beat the Bulldogs. But they're not. They're not pushing for the 8.
No, they're comfortably without Turbo. They'd be comfortably behind.
And usually when a player
for
doesn't,
example, the Eels, the Raiders, those guys, the Warriors, those guys who are fighting for like 5th place to 11th. Let's say, those teams are better than Manly when they don't have Tom.
And I feel stupid saying that because obviously they're not. No one is better when you take the best player out.
No, I know.
But I think if you took Cleary out for a season, Penrith would probably sit around 5th, 6th.
Right.
If you took Latrell out for a season, the Rabbitohs drop 3 or 4 places. Take Munster. Oh, well, look at them without Pappy. One of their best players.
Yeah.
Have dropped to around 4.
3rd, 4th.
teams that usually sit fourth, if they miss the top player, are fighting around the 8.
Pappy's back, by the way.
Yeah, he played in the...
You know, he's named for the Sunshine Coast Falcons this weekend.
It's massive.
So that's their dual reg partner. So yeah,
But
and Olam's playing in that game as well.
I look at them and I go, the 12th place is different.
Yeah.
12, 13 place is different. I usually think a player should cost you 3 or 4.
Mm.
A player like that. Take Jack Wellesby out of St Helens. They go from being a team that could win it to probably, and they had a poorish start and whatever, but they might drop a couple of places. Take
Tompkins out of our team, out of Catalan, J Field.
they might drop a couple of places.
Well, when we lost J Field, we dropped a few places, didn't we? We were top just after Field got injured.
Yeah.
And then by the time he came back, we were
3rd or 4th.
4th, I think we were, or 5th even. After, yeah.
You know what I mean? They change from an unbelievable attacking threat to looking like they can't score,
I know what you mean.
and that's a worry.
If you want to talk about unbelievable attacking threats, though,
Penrith
28, Cronulla 0. Not a good day for the Sharks.
No, not a good day for the Sharks
Not
at
a
all.
good day.
First of all, it's not often you see a team get nilled.
Well, they come up against the unstoppable killing machine that is Penrith, on form. And do you just think Penrith keep losing a lot of players because other teams pay massive money for them, and they seem to regenerate better players.
Yeah,
Like
they're going to lose Stephen Crichton this time.
They'll
They're
lose-
already bringing in
Peachy,
Isaac Targo. Is it
They've
Targo?
already
Targo?
got
But
Targo.
a couple of lads that they're bringing through, and you're looking at them.
Just look on the wing. Taruva has come in out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic.
There's rumours Charlie Staines going back.
He's been fantastic. I heard the rumour is Charlie Staines going back as well. Yeah, I heard
He came
that.
back from his perforated bowel.
He's only on a 1-year deal though with the Wests, so he would be free
Would be free.
to join Penrith. He'd be free to join anybody.
They would. If you're anyone that's wanting a grand final, you've got to beat Penrith at some point.
Blake Austin. Didn't he say on that podcast he wanted to join Penrith and said any team going for the well, they said what team would you want to join, Blake, and he said anybody going for the title to join as a 14. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And instead he's got Featherstone and Castleford fighting for his signature.
But you've got to beat Penrith, and if you're watching that Sharks game,
They're odds
You're
on
worried.
3 in a row, aren't they?
yeah.
Odds on.
Now, the Bulldogs versus the Finns. Bulldogs winning 23-22. My Finns go down.
This was unlucky, this. Good game though.
I quite enjoyed watching this game, you know.
I enjoyed watching this game as well.
The Bulldogs seemed up
Because
for
they
it.
were all on TV, and in Super League this game wouldn't have been picked for television coverage. We're back on that again.
But the Bulldogs seemed up for it after some poor defeats. And we said this about the Dolphins, that they're going to be inconsistent with that.
Yeah.
They're not a settled team yet. So they're going to have them issues.
I don't think they'll be a settled team for a while.
No, I don't. I really doubt they will.
Probably not until after Bennett leaves and Wolves had him for a few years. Then they might become a bit more of a settled side.
But we always talk about how important it is. And the fact that they've got one of the best kickers in the comp, the Dolphins, in Asako. He actually missed 2 kicks.
Yeah, that's not like him.
Not like him. One was from the centre to Wera. And that would have took them...
Yeah, that's the guy whose contract was for cutting the grass, remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have took them to a 3-point lead because Burton kicked a drop goal with a minute left of the first half. The game then went to 23-18 and Anthony Milford scored. So he had a kick to win it and he missed.
Yeah, I remember seeing that kick to win and miss, yeah.
So it could have been another 2 competition points. They're
Do you
still
think they're
in
going to miss the 8? Or I think probably going to miss the 8.
I think they're going to miss the 8. They're 4 points back.
There's just too many teams to... It's not like the points, because you can get the points back. It's just there's too many teams fighting.
They've had a tough last 7 weeks.
Yes.
The last 7 weeks have been the Warriors.
Feels like Origin has kind of done it to them.
But listen to this run, ready? Warriors, Manly, Para, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Panthers, Bulldogs.
You see, yeah, apart from the Bulldogs, those are all teams fighting for the 8 or fighting for the top.
And they beat the Titans, which is a good win.
They had to beat Bulldogs, man. This was the one they had to win.
But actually, I'm looking at the running, and
Is it
they
generous?
could do. They've got to play the Newcastle Knights next week.
That'll be a good game.
They're both this week. They've
Well,
got both
that'll
fighting.
that'll be this weekend, won't it?
Yeah. They play they play the Roosters the week after, who may be out of the top 8 race altogether.
That'll
They then
be last
play
chance
West
for those
Tigers.
two teams.
They then play West Tigers,
Yep.
the Warriors, the Cowboys, and then the Warriors. And the Warriors might be resting players before then if they're guaranteed a top 4 spot. So there is still a chance. I don't think they will, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I don't think they will either, but they've done all right. They've done better than most people. I mean, most people tipped them for the spoon.
Sorry.
Yeah, most people tipped them for the spoon. So they've done all right to avoid that. They've had some big wins, but I don't think they're going to make the 8, unfortunately.
Now, the last game, because the Warriors got a bye this week, so I can't wax lyricals about Sean Johnson.
Or Delaney, what's his name, Lesniak?
Oh, yeah.
AKA Lionel Richie.
The Titans played the Cowboys. Big win this for the Titans, 22-13 over the Cowboys.
Yeah, they were excellent.
Cowboys up there with definitely in the top 3 or 4 informed teams,
Oh yeah,
playing some really, really good rugby. But
the form
Titans,
table would have been the Cowboys up near the top, definitely, because they were on fire coming into this game.
But this is a big win for the Titans and really, really does push them on for a chance to push for the top 8, I think.
Yeah, I was impressed with the Titans. But this week is the Titans against the Warriors. That'll be a good game. That's a good game, I think.
That leaves the Titans and the Warriors, the Titans and the Dolphins both on 22. The Roosters and Para on 24, and the Cowboys are in 8th on 26th.
It's going to be close.
It's going to be very close. There's realistically only the Bulldogs, St George and West who are out of it, in my opinion.
That's who we said were out of it a few weeks
Yeah.
ago, and it's still the same. Usually the teams drop off one by one.
They've not.
They've
No
not
one
yet,
dropped
anyway.
off. Everyone's just hung on.
Just clinging on, these teams, because they're beating each other.
I think this time next week we'll be looking and saying
Maybe.
there's 2 more cut from it.
Maybe. You never know, though.
You never know, but that's just my opinion. I think we might be there. Right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a look at the 6 main leagues across the world.
And see where they're
Okay,
at.
and see where they're at. We're going to give our
Britain and
Britain and Australia.
Australia. We're not looking at the French league.
And we're going to give our quick review of where everything's at, really, and then we'll do predictions. So we'll be back shortly. So we're going to do something a little bit new, something that we haven't done before. Because it's the midpoint in the season,
Well,
or just over midpoint, coming to the business
2 months
end.
left, I guess you could say.
Yeah, coming to the business end of the season, we've decided to have a quick look at pretty much the 3 major leagues over here and the 3 major leagues in Australia, just to sort of give our 2 pence on
Who's doing well?
who's doing well, who could compete, and who's struggling. So we're going to start off with the Betfred League 1 table, and it's sort of split in 2, really, isn't it? We've got the 5 teams at the top: Dewsbury, Hunslet, Doncaster, Workington, and Oldham. Dewsbury far away ahead, 5 points clear.
Yeah, so Dewsbury are favourites to go up. They've only lost 1 game all year.
But then you've got Hunslet.
Hunslet are chasing. They're 5 games back with a game in hand. Doncaster are 7 points back with 2 games in hand.
I think realistically, in my opinion, that Dewsbury will go on to win that.
Yeah, I
they
think
look the dominant side.
Dewsbury are the favourites.
But then teams from 2 to 5,
They're all
Hunslet,
competitive,
Doncaster, Workington, and Oldham, are competing, and all of them 5 positions could change, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Oldham, who are 5th, finish 2nd if results go their way.
You got Crusaders and Rochdale, who are kind of occupying that mid-table.
Yeah, both sat on
section.
10 points.
Then Cornwall have had a big improvement. They've had 4 wins.
4 wins. They're
this
sat
year.
in 8th.
And their game was really, really interesting
It's
at the weekend. This is one of the reasons I wanted to do this, because I was following along with their game when they beat Crusaders. So they beat Crusaders. They were winning at half-time 40 points to 4. And then they won 40 points to 38. So and there was a kick missed to level it up at the very end. So imagine that game.
That's a level
You
of
win-
stress I don't need.
I know. So you've scored 38 points unanswered. Sorry, 34 points unanswered in the second half, and you've still not won. That's the tale of two halves. If you were a fan sitting at the other end, you wouldn't be very happy, would you?
No.
Only one try all day. But yeah, that's interesting. I
But
thought.
I do think...
Crusaders and Cornwall both.
I know they're a win behind Rochdale and the Crusaders, but if they could get 2 wins and jump above them...
Mid-table.
Imagine if they finish 6th.
I think they'll. I think those 3 teams kind of mid-table. North Wales, Rochdale, Cornwall. But for Cornwall to be in that sort of section is a big improvement for them.
Yeah.
It's only their second year, remember, or third year, I can't remember.
Then we've got the Midlands Hurricanes in 9th. They picked up 3 wins, which is a good sign.
Well, it's a new team.
It's a newish team, isn't it?
They're representing the whole of the Midlands. They're kind of Coventry Bears, except Coventry Bears still exist but play in a Midlands sort of division.
Yeah.
So there's teams in Leamington, Leicester, Coventry, Birmingham, Telford that play in a Midlands division, and this is kind of representing of them. So it's a new concept. I hope it does well.
Yeah. But they've got to be given time to do well.
Yeah, and then London Scholars at the bottom. They're yet to pick up a point all season. They only play 13 games, but they have lost all 13.
It's a bit weird that they've played significantly less.
I don't know how it works.
Must be. I saw that they postponed the game the other day.
Well, they've got a few players on loan from Broncos.
Yeah.
So hopefully that boosts them and gives them a bit
of a boost.
A new lease on life for the rest of the season. Hopefully.
Yeah. And I'd love to see them pick up a win or two.
They lost the head coach as well early this season. He went to London Broncos, so I think
it can't help.
It definitely didn't help. But yeah, hopefully these teams near the bottom can improve. Obviously, there's no jeopardy for relegation. They're not going to go.
It gives them time to develop.
Yeah, there's time for these teams in League One. Hopefully, they can improve. The worrying thing is like Workington's finances are rumoured to be not great. So we want these teams to
be steady and safe.
Be stable. Yeah, I know they're only part-time teams, but we want them to be. We want them to carry on existing, basically.
Yeah. So then we're going to have a look at the Betfred Championship.
Yeah.
And
this has got some full-time teams, won't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Teams, especially near the top.
There is a clear leader at the top of this, Featherstone.
Featherstone played 21-19.
Lost one game all season. They've got a points difference of 622. They're yet to concede over 200 points.
Yeah.
38 points. And then it sort of clumps up again around the 2nd, 3rd and 4th between Toulouse, Sheffield and Batley. Only split by 2 points.
Yeah.
Points difference.
Well, no, Toulouse are on 28.
Sheffield and Batley
are
26.
on 26, yeah, and then it goes to Bradford down on 23. So there is a clear gap between the top 4 and the rest, you're right.
And then, as we go down that, it sort of reads a little bit...
So you're thinking £1 million game-wise, it's going to be Featherstone against one of these 3 teams?
Yeah.
Toulouse, Sheffield or Batley?
Yeah.
You'd think those would be the playoffs, and then there'll be...
It would... What's your opinion on the £1 million game then, to get up? Because that, to me, tells you there is a clear favourite.
There's a clear favourite.
As in, Featherstone should go up looking at that, in my opinion.
I'm only assuming there's still a £1 million game. I don't actually know. There was last year, wasn't there?
Yeah. But then Bradford, Halifax, Widnes and London and York all conclude the middle part of the table from 5th to 9th, all sat around 20 points. Bradford on 23 and York in 9th on 18.
These teams, so Bradford, Halifax, Widnes, London, York, in another universe could all be Super League teams.
Yeah.
They could be part of an expanded Super League.
Well,
they could
Bradford Super League.
They would all be new markets or former greats or something like that, wouldn't they?
And then we have a little bit of a drop-off into 10th on 14 points with Whitehaven, Barrow, Keighley, Swinton and Newcastle Thunder.
Yeah, Newcastle Thunder have gone from full-time to part-time and...
they look favourites to go down to me.
They probably will go down. I think Keighley and Swinton will
I think they're one win away from being guaranteed safety.
We watched on Monday night Bradford against Barrow from Oddsall. It was on Viaplay.
It was a big win that for Barrow.
And that was a huge win for Barrow, you're right. You could see how much it meant to them to get above Keighley and Swinton, to get onto 13 points. Yeah, I think they'll stay up now, Barrow. And I think, unfortunately, for Newcastle, it looks like they're going to be the ones heading down to League One. What did you think of Bradford though? I mean, they could have done with
Very
the points.
ill-disciplined, in my opinion.
Yeah, they needed the points really to keep pace. I mean, if they had got those points, we'd be talking about up near the top. They'd only be one behind Batley and Sheffield.
Yeah, that level of ill-discipline,
Yeah,
you won't win games.
it wasn't great. It was just so unfortunate. I saw Bilko tweeted saying Bradford were a big power in Super League, weren't they? 15 years ago, whatever. And yet now, they were playing at home on a Monday night on Viaplay. It was really muddy. The stand looked like...
It looked like it had been condemned.
Yeah, they were playing in orange. Why were they playing in orange?
I don't know.
Playing in orange for some reason. Losing to Barrow, who were near the bottom of the table.
The
Barrow were the...
Is that a racetrack on the outside? It looked horrid.
Barrow were the team that came up, so... I mean, they'll be happy to have stayed up, I think, this year if they stay up. So they were the promoted side, but they should be beating Barrow, let's
Every
be
time
honest.
I look at Bradford, all I can think about is Bullmania.
Yeah.
And everything that was so special about Bradford. Going and Leslie Vinocolos scoring tries for fun, and the
Sean
crowd...
Taylor Harpy, Paul Deacon.
16,000 on the...
Massive crowds.
and absolutely bouncing.
Massive crowds, and there will be
And looking forward to going to Bradford every year.
there's a passion for that to come back. And you can't just say, right, Bradford, you're in Super League, get back to that. You can't just do that because they're running with Deck Patton and Jordan Lilly in the halves. And no disrespect to them, but they're not Super League stars. It needs to be time taken over this. It needs to be 10 years.
If Bradford Bulls were the Bradford Bulls of 20 years ago, give or take, they would be a massive addition to Super League right now. And I think that's the first major point.
Well, to put them in Super League now, their attendances would have to increase, which is possible if you invested some money in the stadium and the playing squad. They've got Eamon O'Carroll on board for coach next year, who Tompkins has personally said he thinks he'll do well.
Yeah.
So Eamon O'Carroll's on board for coach next year with a long deal, which is the first time I think they've appointed a proper coach on a long-term deal with some forward thinking. So that's positive. If they invest, and if they find investors to invest in the playing staff and invest in the match day experience, they can get back to that and slowly but surely prove themselves ready for Super League. I think there's a chance Bradford are in Super League within the next 10 years. And I think it's not...
I wouldn't say 10.
It's not necessarily them winning the championship. I think it's more to do with
The IMG structure.
the IMG structure. And I think if they get it right and their attendances start to get up and they start to invest in the playing squad and stuff like that, I think then they'll be getting closer to the top of the championship. But as it stands now, watching them on that Monday night, it did look a bit depressing. Because this is not...
It's like looking back on anything and
No,
you
I
go,
know, and I
the
think-
glory days. But
I think maybe it's because...
and I still find it scary that they won Super League and now they...
But I think it's because we don't see much of Bradford on TV.
Yeah.
I think that's why. I think all we see of Bradford is the occasional funny tweet about them putting a crash mat in the corner because it's too close to the racetrack, or something ridiculous has happened with Bradford, right? But to actually see them on TV on this Monday night, playing against Barrow and losing and playing in orange, like, it just seems so weird.
Yeah.
Like, it just seemed weird anyway. It looks like they'll be around again to try again next year with a new coach. Hopefully that goes well. Halifax, Widnes, London, York, all these teams, we want them to do well. I'd want them all in Super League. More teams, please. Big markets, please.
Get rid of loop fixtures.
Get rid of loop fixtures, yes, definitely. But, it looks like Featherstone are going to be coming up. Fair play to them. They're going to replace one of the teams nearest to them.
Well, let's start talking about that. So we're looking at Super League.
Yeah. Let's talk about the relegation battle first.
Well, yeah. Cass and Wakey, now both on 8 points.
Yeah.
Castleford playing Huddersfield next week. Wakey playing Hull.
They could both win those games, let's be honest.
They could both win and they could both lose.
They're
them.
playing 9th and 10th respectively. One of them could pick up a win or both, but they play each other in a few weeks, and Wakefield could be ahead by then.
Well, let me ask you.
They could be level.
Who do you think stays up? 7 rounds left. Who are you backing to stay up?
Okay, right now, I think Wakefield have done their business early. They've gelled as a team. They've got their fans on their side.
Yeah.
Castleford are scrambling to sign. They've signed 4 or 5 players in the last week. Their fans are against the coach. I think, as it stands right now, Wakefield are the favourites to stay up again.
So
by
do
the
I.
skin of their teeth again. The escape artists.
I think the last. Sorry.
7 weeks.
The last 7 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever you want to say, for Wakey to get 3 wins out of 4,
Yeah.
that has sent shock waves through Castleford.
No, I agree. And as it stands, both of these teams would probably be outside the top 12 IMG teams anyway.
Yeah.
The rumour is that these 2 teams will be replaced by Featherstone and Toulouse.
Sorry, I've just seen Blake Austin won't be able to play against Leeds in the last game of the season.
Oh wow, that's massive. That's huge, really. That's really huge. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's huge.
So imagine if he does kick off a partnership and you need him to
If he
win in
has
the
the
last
part-
game
if
and
he
then you
has-
have to
yeah.
break it for the last game.
No, if they have, yeah, you're right though. Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't realise that. Yeah, as I was saying, the rumour IMG wise would be that Featherstone and Toulouse would replace Castleford and Wakefield as the higher ranked B clubs to fill out that top 12. So I don't know. It could be that we never lose Wakefield. They always seem to survive, but I don't know.
Well, let's then have a look at the teams just outside the outside the 6. Sorry.
Yeah,
In 10th, we've got Huddersfield.
on 16.
9th, Hull FC. Leeds in 8th, and Salford in 7th. 2 points outside the 6.
So there's only 4 points that separates those 4 teams that are making up that chasing pack,
Well,
and Salford are only 2 points off. But if you look at Salford's last 5 games, they've lost them all, and they've got to play St Helens next.
And they've got to play St Helens next. Hull are playing Wakey. Huddersfield are playing Cass. Leeds get Leigh the week before the Cup,
Yeah,
who you would expect to be resting a few players.
yeah.
And that would then bring in
Let's talk about who they're chasing.
the chasing Warrington, Hull KR on 22 points. Hull KR are resting a lot
Against us, yeah.
pre-Cup, and we know what the Cup can do to people. Warrington have got to play Catalans.
Yep.
So if results go a certain way, and just scroll down so I can just check that one more time, you could end up on Hull KR, Warrington, and Salford all being on 22.
Yeah.
Leeds and Hull FC being on 20,
And Huddersfield being on 18.
and Huddersfield being on 18.
That's possible if it all goes to form.
If all things go a certain
In
way.
a certain way, yeah.
Can
St Helens
we
are in
just-
4th.
Can we just go back down a little bit?
Yeah.
So we talked about Cass and Wakey.
Yeah.
If you asked you to ask your opinion on Huddersfield, I think the one word that would describe that for me is they've been disappointing.
Huddersfield. Well, I think so, but they have won the last 3. They've turned it around. They played well against Hull FC. I was impressed with them against Wakefield. So they beat Catalan away in Catalan. I think this is more a case of they were very disappointed, and now they'll be disappointed with where they're sitting. But if they can put a run on together and they end up on 24, 26 points, and maybe they get the 6, maybe they just miss it, I don't think they'll be too disappointed. They can build for next year then.
Anything to say about them other teams, Hull FC?
Well, so Leeds are going to be disappointed if they miss the 6.
Leeds should be mega disappointed if they missed the 6.
Leeds are the biggest ones currently out of the 6 that will be the most disappointed. Salford as well, because they were doing so well, but they have fallen off. I do think one of those 2 teams is going to put a run together though. Maybe it's Leeds.
See, I'm worried about Leeds now. They've lost Austin. Myler out for the season.
I know, but I think one of these 2 teams is probably going to.
And the
I
rumours,
can't see Warrington and Hull KR both hanging on.
See, but the rumours about Salford...
Maybe it's Hull FC, or I don't know.
The rumours about Salford really worry me.
No, I know what you mean.
With Briley, rumours about Croft.
Well, maybe the top 6 stays as it is then. Although I do think St Helens will go past at least Leigh and perhaps even us, just because they've got that game in hand against Huddersfield and they've got to play Salford next. So I do think Saints are going to
let's look at the top 4. We'll start at the top. Catalans are on 30 points.
Yeah.
Probably, if we're being openly honest, would expect them to keep that lead.
Yeah, I think they'll go on and win the
league leaders.
league leaders now. They've got a big points difference gap over
And then-
everyone else as well.
As it stands, Wigan and Leigh are on 26 points, having played 20 games. Wigan second, just on points difference. And St Helens have played one less game and are 2 points behind.
That
on
game is
24.
against Huddersfield on Cup final weekend. So, if as expected, St Helens beat Huddersfield, that leaves all three teams on 26.
With the issue being, Wigan play Hull KR, who are prepping for a Challenge Cup, and the squads have been released, and they've brought a lot of academy players in.
So you don't expect Wigan to win this weekend?
Yeah, my prediction, I expect them to try and put some points on
Yeah.
to improve that points difference. Leigh have to play Leeds before the Challenge Cup,
Yeah.
so they may miss out on that. They may rest a few, and that could cause issues.
I think the top four is the top four.
I think the top four is the top four.
There's going to be different combinations. Ideally, we finish second, but I think the top four is going to stay the top four, to be honest with you.
So do I.
And perhaps even in that order, or maybe third and fourth will switch.
Well, if third and fourth switches or Saints go to wherever, Leigh finishing in the top four.
Well, I think Leigh will
Getting-
finish in the top four.
But at the start of the year, getting top four,
Yeah. No.
my
And the final of
goodness.
the cup,
and final of the cup.
which I think they'll win.
That, imagine if they get a home semi or a home. Sorry,
Well, to get a home semi-final, they'd have to go into second, which I don't.
no,
think they will.
but because third place sixth, don't they?
Oh, so
the
that's
first game.
Yeah, that's not semi.
Not semi, sorry.
Yeah.
Whatever they call it, I forget the new name for it now.
First round
Yeah,
eliminator, it's called.
the eliminator. Imagine if they get a home match in that, it'd be bouncing.
Well, as it stands, they will be playing Warrington at home. Imagine that game. That would be absolute box office.
I know.
Leigh at home to Warrington in the eliminator. Wow.
Happy with where we are.
Happy. Yeah, very happy. Especially if we win tomorrow. Very happy.
I
Right.
think with the ups and downs that we've had, things could be an awful lot worse.
Yeah.
And the way that we're dealing with it, we've lost 7 games. 2 probably to our own accord. We imploded against Leeds when they had 12 men.
Yep.
That would be the third.
And
Lost
the
to Catalan twice.
The Wakefield one as well.
That was one of the 2 that I was talking about where we shot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
So, looking at that, still room to improve. But I'm very happy at that. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at the defensive record, the third best defensive record in the league, just behind St Helens and Catalans. And
St Helens have played a game fewer, but they're not going to concede 50 points in that one, are they? So.
and the second best attacking record.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive, and I'm very, very happy with that.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with where we're at the moment.
Good.
Now, we're going to fly over to Australia really quick, and we're going to start off talking about the New South Wales Cup.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it really, really quick.
I just want to talk about the New South Wales Cup a bit because it's got an interesting makeup. It's got 13 teams, which is already interesting. Now, some of these teams you will recognise the names of, some of them you might not. So, you've got New Zealand Warriors, Canterbury Bulldogs, Penrith Panthers, South Sydney Rabbitohs, Canberra Raiders, St George Illawarra Dragons, Parramatta Eels, Newcastle Knights and Sydney Roosters. Now, they are all NRL teams. This is their reserve team. So they're reserved. So the NRL club's reserve team plays in the championship. This is an idea I'd love for the British game to try and copy because I feel like it would be competitive. The Wigan Warriors reserves against Swinton or against Whitehaven or whoever, maybe. I don't know if it would be League One or Championship, but I think it would be better for our players to play against better opposition, to play against men every week rather than just playing against the reserve grades for each other.
Yeah, it's a real thing, and
The other clubs, I should have said.
are in the Queensland.
No, yeah. So the other NRL teams reserves are in the Queensland Cup. Melbourne still don't have one.
But they have 2
I'll talk
teams,
about
don't they?
them when it gets to Queensland. But the other teams that make up the New South Wales Cup, you've got North Sydney Bears, which is an old NRL team that no longer play in the NRL. You've got Newtown Jets, which is the exact same. They used to be in the NRL as well. You've got the Blacktown Workers, who are the Blacktown Workers Sea Eagles now, because
Yeah.
Manly have taken them over.
They're a feeder team for the...
So they're a feeder team for Manly now. You've got the Western Suburbs Magpies, who are feeder team for Western Suburbs Tigers. Those are the two teams that merged to make Wests. So basically, they're all feeder teams for one team or another, or reserve teams, apart from Newtown Jets and the North Sydney Bears, who used to be in the league. So it's really interesting. Whenever I see the games, I always want the standalone team to win.
Yeah.
North Sydney are currently top of the league and they're quite far ahead.
Quite
top
far
of the
ahead.
league, and I'm quite pleased for that, like North Sydney Bears. Interestingly, they do have like a dual reg thing with the Sydney Roosters.
But the Roosters do have a team in
But the
this
Roosters have a team themselves because Gildart played for North Sydney Bears last year. But yeah, I mean, I like them. It's just an interesting idea, I think, to have reserve grade teams against part-time teams that we could perhaps use in this country. But yeah,
To improve the
a
standard
lot of
of the
people
game.
were saying the standard of this league is comparable to the Super League. Not sure about that, but it's certainly better than the Championship. So it is.
It is very, very competitive.
It's very competitive, and there are lots of good players that play in these divisions. That
I love the Newtown Jets.
the Newtown Jets, they're your team, are they?
Yeah, I feel like no matter what sport it is, until I can get into it,
No, I like
the
the
way I
Newtown
get
Jets.
into it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
just
yeah.
by picking a team and
No,
follow it everywhere.
I like the Newtown Jets as well. Yeah, Jackson Hastings used to play for them.
Yeah. But a few teams down off at the bottom. The Roosters are struggling.
Yeah, Roosters.
But
it
look
doesn't
at the
really matter though, does it? See, these teams at the top, like North Sydney, will really want to win this league, and the Jets will really want to win this league, whatever. But the Roosters and the Knights and the Eels, like these are just reserve teams. So really, it's.
But this is quite interesting, in my opinion. You look at the Roosters who are struggling in this competition, and they're struggling because of the fact that the Roosters' first team has had so many injuries.
Oh, that's a good point.
They've had so many centres and second rowers playing who would probably be playing in the New South Wales Shield. I know we've talked about how some of his comments can be idiotic in Gus Gould, but you look at the Panthers' record in the New South Wales Cup before the likes of Jerome Luai, Nathan Cleary came through.
Yeah.
They were winning this competition.
That's right, yeah. And so it is important, and it is.
And it's that development pathway that they always talk about.
You know what? It's unusual for North Sydney to win it. It's unusual for a team that's not a reserve team to win it. But let's go up above the border to Queensland, and this is a bit different because there's not as many reserve teams in this. In fact, there aren't any. So these are all feeder clubs for certain teams. So you've got South Logan Magpies currently out in front, then Burleigh Bears, and that's your team, is it? Burleigh Bears?
When I went 2008, Burleigh Bears, I bought the shirt, always watch what they're doing. I think I went on the field as well, I can't remember.
Yeah, they do let you on the field.
But I have to keep an eye on the Redcliffe Dolphins now.
Well, I know. So I was going to say, Wynnum Manly are in third, Wynnum Manly Seagulls. But then Redcliffe Dolphins are fourth. This is really interesting. So Redcliffe Dolphins were the team
that became the Dolphins.
Now, they took off the Redcliffe because no one really knows where that is. It's in Brisbane. But they just became the Dolphins. Now, Redcliffe Dolphins still compete as the Redcliffe Dolphins.
Are they a feeder team
In the
to the
division
Dolphins?
below. Yeah, so they'll be a feeder team for the real Dolphins, so to speak. You got Brisbane Tigers, Central Capras, the Tweed Seagulls, Northern Pride. You've got the Townsville Blackhawks. Now this is a team. A lot of these teams, like Brisbane Tigers, Townsville Blackhawks, when you see the World Cup, and this is how I got into it originally, teams like PNG.
They have lots of players.
They have lots of players from this Queensland Cup that play for them. And so some of them play for the Blackhawks, some play for the Seagulls, whatever. You've got Sunshine Coast Falcons, that's Melbourne's feeder team. North's Devils.
Let's talk about the Falcons.
That's
they've got Pappy, Ryan Pappenhausen and Justin Orland playing for them this week.
North's Devils, that's where Rowan Smith came from, to Leeds. Then you've got PNG Hunters, the Papua New Guinea team. That's where Oldham came from. Western Clydesdales, the Mackay Cutters, and then the Ipswich Jets. So
I do suggest picking a team.
Yeah, pick a team.
Pick a team you like the logo of and follow them.
They're interesting logos. They're interesting colours. You wouldn't necessarily start a team now and, I don't know, call it the Cutters or the Clydesdales or the Seagulls, whatever. But in Australia, they tend to. So, just thought we'd talk a bit about those teams, give them a bit of love, and then we'll finish off talking about the NRL, which we do every week.
So, the league is starting to get into a bit of a... What's the word? A top 4, a middle 4, and then the bottom... the top 4, a middle 8, and then the bottom 5.
Yeah, it's 5 now with 17 teams.
So, the top 4, the Panthers, the Broncos, the Warriors, and the Storm,
Can't see that changing.
both on 34, 30, and 30.
Yeah.
We then go into the middle 8, and we've got the Raiders, the Rabbitohs, the Sharks, the Cowboys, Knights, Sea Eagles, Eels, and Roosters.
And
The Raiders
do you know how
won
many
28.
points separate those 8 teams? 4.
4.
So 4 points separate those middle 8 teams, and 4 of them are going to make the playoffs, and 4 of them are not. That is incredibly hard. You could genuinely have a top 14 playoff this year,
Yeah.
and it would still
Well,
be competitive.
we just missed out off that middle 8, the Titans and the Dolphins,
Yeah,
but they're only 2 points behind.
they're only 2 points behind.
So if they could gain 6 points on everyone else,
Well, who are you going to
they'd be 5th.
Who are you going to put a line under? The Bulldogs have got a bye next, so they're going to be on 22.
I'm putting a line under the Dolphins.
But they're going to be on 20. The Bulldogs are going to be on 22 because they've got a bye.
I'm going to put a line underneath the Bulldogs, above the Bulldogs, sorry, below the Dolphins, and say that if the Dolphins don't win next week, they're out of it.
I think the Titans, the
The
Dolphins,
Dolphins are just in it by the skin of their teeth.
They're in must-win territory.
Yeah.
To get in. I also think the Roosters and the Eels are also in must-win.
I think they can afford one loss,
Yeah.
maybe,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly, you don't play every team twice in this division.
And you get a different amount of buys.
Yeah. So,
But the last 3 that we've not mentioned, the Dogs,
the bottom 3,
the Dragons, and the Tigers.
Yeah, the Doggies are 6 points with a bye clear of Dragons though, and Tigers are 4 points behind the Dragons. So it's not really like a bottom 3. You're going to put all together. So there's more points separating. So there's 4 points separating the bottom 2,
And that's the same gap
and
between
that's the same gap as between the middle
5th and
8.
12th.
Yeah. So
Wow, really competitive.
it's that kind of league this year.
Has your opinion changed on who you think's going to win it?
If anything, I'm more confident Penrith are going to win it.
I'm still going the Bunnies.
I know how hard it is to win 3 in a row, but they're just so
Would that
good.
put them as one of the greatest NRL teams of all time if they win 3 in a row?
I think they might already be, but yes, definitely.
Because at the moment you're talking
Those Eels teams with Brett Kenny that won 3 in a row,
the Great Brisbane team.
the great Brisbane team in the 90s, the Storm. I know
Yeah.
they had 2 of them taken off them for salary cap, but they still were a great team.
But then the Storm of 17, 18, the Roosters that won 2 back-to-back with Cooper Cronk.
Yeah, but I think these are better than those Roosters.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm still going to go with the Bunnies. I still think they can win it. Right, we're going to do quick fire predictions, Matty,
For Super League.
for Super League.
Okay.
We're going to keep it really, really quick. Sorry. I'm just,
Been a long episode this, or it feels long anyway.
yeah. Castleford, Huddersfield, Matty.
That's Friday night. There's no game on Thursday.
There's no game on Saturday either.
I'm gonna go with Huddersfield by 10.
I'm going Huddersfield by about the same.
I think Huddersfield are going to win that game.
Interesting one now. Warrington versus Catalan. Very tough at Warrington.
New manager bounce. Big crowd expected because they've given a lot of tickets away. I'm still going to back Catalan. Close though.
I can't not back Catalan. I really can't. I don't think these issues will be fixed by a new coach. Wigan, Hull KR.
Well, Wigan by a lot.
Wigan, very simple.
Hopefully it's by a lot because I've seen the teams.
Yep. For Wigan, they've already said that we're going to rest Liam Byrne.
Well, he deserves it.
I think he deserves it
He has.
after.
He's played every game apart from one of the ones early doors, I think.
Right, Hull FC Wakefield at Hull.
I'm going for Hull in a close one.
I regretted not doing it last week. I'm going to go Wakey to get an away win.
Okay.
Leeds versus Leigh.
I can see this being similar to our game, but not quite as one-sided. I think Leeds will win, though.
I think Leeds will win, but I think it'll be closer than what most people are expecting. Myler out, Austin now gone. I think they may struggle a little bit. Now, a massive game. Salford Saints.
I think Salford are in a bit of disarray. I think St Helens will win.
St Helens as well. And that wraps up the predictions.
Yeah.
So, we're going to wrap up the episode. It's been a fun one.
It's been an interesting one, yeah. I think with the
A
new
few talking points, really.
Yeah, with the new international calendar, obviously we talked a long time about Darryl Powell being sacked.
It's been a busy week.
Is it the first coach sacked? Oh no, Radford, after 4 weeks, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, been a busy week. Obviously we decided to talk about the...
How long before we
The-
start talking about the interim still being the interim?
I don't know, that's a good question.
We give Andy last 3 weeks before we mentioned it.
Well, that was just ridiculous how long they kept making Andy last wait.
And now he might be sacked before Christmas. Before the end of the season. But anyway, that wraps up our episode. Matty, thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
And we'll see you next week.